welcome back to day 2 of week 4 of phase 2 of the SPL season 7. Yeah. Mifflin, I'm glad I have you here because it is time. All right, we're already starting off poorly. This thing makes no noise for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Smite Chair Edition. All right, question 1, Mifflin. Most important thing. Oh, you got it. Nice. Most important thing to being good at Smite: practice, self-review, gaming chair, or a good mindset going into game.
I would have to give it up to gaming chair, man. 100% that way. Maybe God-given talent gets an honorable mention, but gaming chair for sure.
That's right, and that's why I'm absolutely shooting up the ranks. All right, question 2. You've moved on. Congratulations. What is the best seat? An office chair, a bar stool, a Maxonomic, or Santa's lap?
Can I hear C again?
Maxonomic is answer C there in that one.
Absolutely going to be Maxonomic.
Yeah, okay, Maxonomic. Correct there. All right, question 3. Only a couple more here, Mifflin, till you win the $1 million. How does your lumbar feel? Lower back there. Good, great, fantastic, or flawless?
All of the above, Dave. I'm loving this.
Fantastic. All right, Mifflin, 2 more till you win $1 million. Why does it feel that way? Happiness, positive outlook on life, presence of friends at work, or the seat that you're currently sitting in?
It's got to be the chair, because I don't have any of those other 3, man. But my lumbar, phenomenal.
All right, Mifflin, one final question before you win the $1 million. When Mifflin is scared at night, scared of the dark, what do you use to stay calm? A blanket, a nightlight, warm milk, or a Maxonomic chair ward to light up the room?
Maxonomic chair ward to light up the room.
Congrats, Mifflin. You've won the Maxonomic chair this time around. You go to needforseat.com, and you all at home can win a Maxonomic chair ward as well. Needforseat.com. Now in-game, you'll get this awesome in-game ward, just like me, just like Mifflin. Results may vary on the scaring away the darkness, I guess, whether that's light or life, whatever that may be. But Maxonomic solves a lot of problems. For me, it was my gaming skill and my back pain. So needforseat.com, check out that in-game ward. That was the lengthiest one yet, Mifflin, so I am very excited to move our way into talking about our next set, a fun slate of games we've had so far this weekend. The standings already shaken up a little bit, but the way the schedule kind of broke out, right, is the top 4 teams playing today, and then the lower half of the teams playing tomorrow. Goes Sanguine off the board with the first 2. Radiance SSG now, Mifflin, is what we got on the slate to round out our day here on Saturday. Gotta be looking forward to this one.
I really am excited for it. I think SSG definitely has a shot at taking down Radiance, but I might not think as much as the community does. I think it was about 80% in favor of SSG, which is crazy. We have no data to back that up. Radiance is undefeated right now, and they haven't shown us any signs that they plan on stopping.
That's right, just by default, Radiance is the best team in the league right now, right? I guess that's the way it works, and not overextending at all by saying that, I'm sure. I want to focus, though, on the support matchup, I think, in this one, Mifflin. Aurora on one side, Raffer on the other. It's going to be an absolute brawl here between these two guys. What have you liked? Maybe what haven't you liked that you've seen from Raffer so far here in this phase?
Sometimes Raffer just likes to take these unorthodox picks, and he plays it really aggressively. He was one of the first ones to bring out the Jing Shen, one of the first Kuzenbos. And you know what? Power to him. Those picks have slowly eked their way into the meta. But I think sometimes we see him play just a little bit over-aggressive, and it's coming back to bite him. But even going the other way, we can't say Aurora isn't playing just as, if not more, aggressive.
Yeah, I am curious, kind of your thoughts on that. How similar, playstyle-wise, do you think these two guys are? Do you think we see some mirrored mindsets maybe between the two?
I think, all right, so the difference is Aurora's playing aggressive because he's looking to find his team a lead. Raffer's playing aggressive because he thinks he's the best player in the world, and he just might be one of them, so he's kind of disrespecting the opposition a little bit. And honestly, functionally, they might look the same. I think the core cause of it is different, and it feels different.
Well, the final undefeated team now here in Phase 2 is Radiance, so let's springboard on that conversation. Aurora, pick it up with him. I think in-game, and Raffer pulls a lot of the same presence in picks and bans as well, same as PBM. But you look at the mindset that Aurora even instills in the enemy team, what that brings up in the pick-ban phase. Hercules kind of perma-banned out against this guy, and it's for good reason. He'll make you pay along the same lines as a PBM, the same as a Raffer. So I expect big things from Aurora here in this matchup.
Completely agree. He's almost just like essentially PBM2. They play very similar styles, very similar god pools. I think Aurora's got a couple of flavor picks that we haven't seen from PBM, specifically this Horus that we're seeing right now. I would say Aurora's got a bit more of a subdued playstyle, though. He's playing a more traditional support role, whereas PBM is this pseudo-secondary jungler. Aurora's very willing to sit in his own team's backline and peel out for his carries, and I think that really helps out when you've got players like Cyclone Spin, like Adapting. You might as well keep some of these guys alive because they're the best in the world.
Yeah, Mifflin, this one is just going to be so much fun. I'm looking down the line here. We've talked at length, I think, about Raffer and Aurora. You look at the matchup between Adapting and Cheerio in this one. I mean, it is going to be an absolute blast here to watch. How evenly matched would you say these two teams are? I think the community, at least in-game voting, was pretty lopsided towards SSG. I don't remember which way you casted your vote, but is this one pretty close to call?
It is really hard to call, man, especially considering the upset we just saw in that last set. I'm pretty sure I cast my vote towards SSG, but that's because I've been an SSG truther since day one. I think it really does come down to how well this first game goes. I think Radiance is a team that is a little bit susceptible to tilt, so if SSG are able to win out in a very commanding fashion in game one, it's going to be very hard for Radiance to recover, but it goes both ways. SSG as well is a little bit susceptible to the tilt themselves, so I'm predicting a 2-0, but I couldn't tell you which team's going to get it.
Yeah, if you told me last set was going to be 2-0, I don't know if I would have believed you, so maybe it's time to hop on the Mifflin train here for Radiance up against SSG. We talked a good bit about Raffer up against Aurora, one of the big matchups that'll be coming onto the battleground here for this one, and we were able to sit down with Aurora, see how he's feeling going up against the enemy team.
The Roar for the interview. How have you prepped for Spacestation this week, man?
Basically just the same as every other week. Just scrimming, looking at what they've played in the past weeks, and just talking about what we want to play, and that's about it. Just the same as every other team, basically.
I like it. You put the same respect on everybody. While you were doing that little study session, did you find any weaknesses in Space Station that you're really looking to exploit?
But not any that really stand out, I guess. But we're just gonna basically play our own game, and that's about it. We kind of know what they play, but we're okay with that, and they probably know what we play as well. So I feel like there's some contested picks and some things that we do, but I don't think there's anything that really stands out to either team. Probably, maybe for them, but not for us at least.
That's a scary thought, man. If they've got something on you and you don't on them. Well, you brought up some contested picks there. What exactly are those in your mind?
I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess, when we play the game. See if they actually did do their homework.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. You got any quick set prediction for this one?
I feel like we should win it 2-0, but they could come with the 2-1, or they can come out with a victory. It might be 2-1, but I feel like we'll win 2-0.
No shot at a Space Station victory coming from Aurora. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Let's get it back to the desk.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it. What are some contested picks? I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see what maybe those are in picks advance. That got me, Miff. When you're flexing your interviewer chops there, and I love it. But I do love what I heard from Aurora. The confidence, the no chance. It's going to be an easy 2-0 here for us. I mean, why wouldn't you feel that way, right? I mean, you got yourself undefeated in here up to this point. Keep that ball rolling up against SSG. This is a big one to test things out on their side. I want to maybe get your focus on it, though, Mifflin. In your mind, lack of an answer there from Aurora. Do you imagine there's going to be, some support picks maybe contested on one side of another? Do you think that's maybe the role that gets looked at over the course of these bans?
I'm glad you asked. I couldn't tell you from fact because Aurora wouldn't tell me anything, but I can say that I'm pretty sure Hercules likely not going to make it through that first ban phase. It's not made it through for Aurora very often, and for good reason. Outside of that, just the standard stuff. I'm sure Cupid's going to get a pretty decent amount of priority here, but as Aurora said, we're going to just have to wait to see how it lines up.
Well, it is Aphrodite and Persephone both taken away here. So mid lane mindset there as well. I think, you know, a fun mid lane matchup even to look at. I don't know. I can't wait to watch this one. You look at BMT up against Dardez, so not surprising seeing Afro, Persephone both taken away. I think Big Man Tings has been consistently good out of this mid lane. I've loved what I've seen from him so far here, so not surprised that we've seen mid laners taken away on either side. There's some support presence in the ban column, with Emoja being taken out. Now, I think Amaterasu makes things interesting here, Mifflin. Do you think that puts SSG in a point where they need to ban out this Cthulhu?
It does leave up only Cthulhu as that high priority solo lane pick, but it's not really a must ban. We've seen before, especially from Ghost, that it is incredibly beatable, especially with gods like Achilles or even a Sun Wukong that can sustain up in that lane. And it seems like SSG's along that same mindset. Cthulhu is very strong. He certainly brings a ton to the team fight, but his early game is exploitable, and I think SSG know that, and that's why they're letting it through.
The
That's
name
right, so
is
Cthulhu. But also my fault for not realizing Freya had been let through. So the presence of Yamoja and Hercules is going to take away, and this is exactly what we were not necessarily worried about, but bringing up in our discussions about Aurora, and even Raffer for that matter. Aurora carrying the weight of Hercules and Yamoja into that ban column is going to open some things up for Radiance in that first pick slot. Mifflin, we're going to get to see Freya for the first time in a while here in Game 1.
I'm worried about it, man. I said earlier that I thought Nemesis might be the best counter matchup into Cthulhu, but Cthulhu goes into Descent to Madness. All of a sudden, he's a 40-foot skyscraper, and Freya's got a very easy target to land all of her damage on. I don't care how much damage you're able to return onto her with Ring of Akate and Typhon's Fang. She's going to sustain through just about every single bit of it. Shred through your Cthulhu, shred through the rest of your team afterward.
And it's a Jingwei. So talk about shred. I mean, Jingwei, you know, when traditional hunters was the meta, still are, outside of, you know, a handful of the magical ADCs. Jingwei is that late-game scaling, tear-you-apart type of ADC. So I think smart here from Spacestation to draft a little of that on their side, prevent both of them from going over towards Radiance. Neath, though, this has been a favorite of Big Man Tings out of this mid lane. You build it a little bit more ability-based. The World Weaver ultimates connect onto any of the squishies for SSG. Not only are they stunned, Mifflin, but they've taken a good bit of health.
Yeah, Transcendence, Heartseeker, likely a Titan's Bane as well. Neath Ultimate's going to swing for about 800-900 come late game, which is going to be just enough to line you up for 2 auto attacks from Freya to finish you off. Or if Nemesis is ganking, she doesn't really have any hard CC herself. Neath's going to make up for that shortcoming all on her own from anywhere on the map. It's a very strong draft so far from Radiance, but SSG no slouch themselves with both Jingwei and Hebo rounding out their top 3. They've got some safety in the long lane and a late game win condition inside of that Hebo.
I think Aggro did a pretty good job of highlighting the Hebo versus Nemesis matchup. Of course, kind of the crux, maybe the weak point of this Nemesis pick has always been how consistently can you get into that backline. You know, you have to use your dashes, suddenly you don't have that to escape. Hebo's going to make that more difficult. Now I'm going to be running away faster, or towards you faster maybe. I'm going to you know, toss you up into the sky. It's going to be difficult, I think, for this Nemesis to get comfortable, at least if you're running towards the Hebo. So I think a good maybe counter pick there out of SSG. Second wave of bans, though, Kuzumbo Kabrakan taken away by SSG. We saw a little bit of Kabrakan last week. That was Cheerio, though. He's going to take it away. Cupid, Mifflin continues to be present in this in the ban phases here. Very strong, I think, at the moment.
I am surprised to see that Cupid ban come through. Evo could go into mid, could go into jungle, which would open them up towards a Cupid mid or even a Jingwei mid. But with the draft that SSG have so far, Double Hunter really doesn't make sense to me. So maybe a bit of a misplay there from Radiance to dedicate one of their bans towards something that is most likely not going to come their way. But it's totally fine. They've still got an incredibly strong draft themselves. Jing Chen for SSG is going to have that engage factor, the ability to get into that back line or at least peel for their own. CC immunity on ultimate is going to make it much easier for him to deal with some of the CC from Neath per se, or even Achilles, be able to peel out for his team. I like both drafts right now, but for Radiance, I'm worried about how one note their engage is, but Cerberus cleans that up pretty well.
Yeah, Cerberus helps you out there. Do you think this Achilles is starting to move towards, I mean, I don't want to say counterpick. I mean, it's a pretty heavy, you know, title to hang on him, but we've seen this Achilles into the Cthulhu, I'd say, a good bit here recently. That execute, obviously powerful. Do you think that's kind of the mindset here from Radiance drafting Achilles?
Face the
I think
bitter
so. I mean,
winds of
Cthulhu's main
Niflheim!
strength is the ability to go into that ultimate, even 50% of his health bar down pre-ultimate. Then he gets that huge boost to mitigations. He gets that huge boost to CC for his team. But with Achilles on the map, Cthulhu's going to have to engage the majority of the fights with that ultimate. You're not going to get that main value out of it. And even if you do, a little bit of damage from something like a Freya is going to immediately line you up to be executed. I think it's a very good matchup in lane as well. If this Achilles heads over to the solo, he should be able to keep up in sustain and poke pretty easily. I like Achilles and a Cthulhu 100%.
And think about where we saw Heimdall as well at the beginning of the phase. Pick ban effectively every time. Not this time around. The one undefeated team left in the SPL, that's Radiance SSG, looking to spoil the party at the top. Game number 1, Finch, it's all yours.
That's right, Finch, Gore, and Doug gonna bring this exciting set to your Radiance up against SSG on this Super Saturday. And we already had a big one with Ghost and Sanguine earlier. Now, we are treated to a second one here, Gore. But Radiance come in with a really strong draft. Freya, the Neith in the middle lane, obviously the Nemesis, Achilles power into this Cthulhu. How do you feel about SSG's chances here?
I like them, but I feel like it's all oriented around the late game pressure they bring, right? Nika on this Cthulhu, I think, is going to be essential for them. And based on what we've seen in the past from Nika's Amaterasu, I expect a lot out of this Cthulhu as well. I think him paired with Raffer have a good amount of setup, and Vote just has to coast into the late game. Same thing with Dardes. The problem is that they have to kind of keep themselves even. They are one of those teams that are perfectly fine doing that. They're not going to take a fight unless they have to. But with Radiance's engage, it feels like there's going to be a lot of opportunities where they don't get much of a choice. The fight just might come to them.
It's going to be scary for sure, and I think you're right to highlight that SSG would love to get some items online for Vote on this Jingwei, for Cherio on this Havois, same for Dardes on the Heimdall, and I think it's normally true for Radiance's draft as well, right? Like Freya wants to be able to get to Hekate, get the Lifesteal Boots, and Typhon's Fang online. Nemesis wants a bunch of items too, but the synergy with this Neith ultimate in the middle lane changes this whole game for me. It opens up these gank opportunities for this Nemesis to go over to solo and look for this Cthulhu, or to come over to the long lane and look for the Jingwei. This could potentially be a scary mid game for SSG.
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth, right? Already you have the counter to Cthulhu in that Nemesis, at least in terms of we're going to melt him faster than he can get anything done. And now you say, okay, if he doesn't have his ult available, we're just going to stun him. Now we're stunning him, locking down his health bar as well. It should be a lot easier to deal with him over here. And I think because of that, it makes sense to maybe have some early pressure on this. I love having Neith mid. Like, I think she's very phenomenal right now in mid, especially if you are running something like an Oleron, a Freya, a Soul, what have you, over in the duo lane here. So I think for Radiance, it gives you the right amount of physical damage, but because she's so ability-based, it's a huge amount of burst. And if you can set your weaves up in the right spot around like Furies or Fire Giant fights, it can be devastating to someone like a Hebo, especially to these two carries on the side of Spacestation Gaming as well. So I think there's a lot of potential for big man Tings here.
There is. And Tings has stepped up for Radiance lately. I really feel like that's the truth because it's hard for this guy to stand out. It's a stacked roster, but Tings does it time and time again. He steps up for them. He provides the damage. He's able to be in the right spots, and they need him to. I think he's up there for one of our best mid laners right now, especially with the current Phase 2 that he's having. But has he met this challenge yet in Dardes, who I think is just the best mid laner? No. So I think we're getting a pretty sick matchup across the board here with Radiance and Spacestation playing into each other. I'm excited. As much as I think chat is right now, I am as well, just to kind of see how this game goes.
And I think there's a lot of merit to what these teams have gone into. I'm looking down at the relics, and I just see 2 blinks on either side of beads there for Cherio, I think, early on to help him out. But being able to have Aurora adapting, go in, get aggressive, I think that's going to be the playstyle I expect to see from Radiance, especially now that we're starting to hit these level 3, level 4, soon enough level 5 marks. That's where we're going to see Radiance, I think, start to hit the gas pedal because that Neith ult will be online. Cool, it becomes easier to shut down Raffer or Vote or Cthulhu over there in the solo lane. I think that's going to be a big play for them, and every single time that happens, Big Man's going to get an assist for it, theoretically slowly accrue himself a lead that he already has over Dardes.
And he's already showing some of the strength of it. It helps even in some instances to clutter comms, whereas Dardes kind of has to let the squad know that Tings has that ultimate charged up and ready. There's all these little small advantages here to the Neith. And I don't want to make it seem like, that Spacestation don't stand a chance here. I don't think it's that far at all. In fact, they're going to be pretty scary in the team fighting stages. Big Man Tings is the ultimate point left, but look where Adapting is. It could be a solo lane gank. No ultimate available. Adapting only just now hit 5, and Nika under no real trouble.
Yeah, I think the pressure of this game, really for Radiance, is going to be how far ahead can you get. Spacestation, they're not going to get aggressive if they don't need to. They're just going to farm up, try to take objectives on the map, try to play the map better than you can. Granted, you're up against Radiance, so that's not going to be the easiest thing. Way easier said than done here. But the later the game goes, the more items they get online, the better the fights start to feel for them. I mean, I love Hebo against the Nemesis. I think him versus Neath as well. She's very predictable with the backflip. Even with the buff it got during the mid-season patch, it's still pretty easy to follow up and kill her off of that. So I think Cherio, Dardez, and Vote, again, they're just playing the time game. They just want to farm. So Radiance, in my eyes, need to get the ball rolling pretty quickly, but they also have Freya, who's not necessarily known for her levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, until she gets a couple of items online as well. So maybe relying heavily on Tings and Adapting to get the ball rolling for them, start the snowball, form it, and then they get to push it down the hill where Cyclone Spin will make sure it becomes massive.
And you mentioned Cyclone Spin. What a career this guy has had, and now putting in his hands Freya, one of the hyperest of hyper carries that you could ask for, I feel like right now with the strength of these magical ADCs. It has to be a recipe for success, I'm thinking, and as you said, they'll be enabling him by trying to carry throughout this mid game. And Freya, part of the reason she's so strong, she's going to come online sooner than a lot of the other ones in terms of her boxing potential, so it's not going to be too long before Cyclone Spin's able to join Big Man Tings and Adapting in terms of that actual threatening damage output.
I think once you finish this Ring of Hecate, more than likely going blow for blow with Vote. There's still a lot of room for error, though. Banish is definitely the saving grace that helps keep you in that fight. But then once you finish your boots, once you get maybe one more attack speed item online, it's almost over, right, for Vote at that point to try and win a boxing match against a Freya until he can get that crit online much later, because Freya will find you in 2 shots, will be able to take you down like it's nothing. You won't have that potential until you get your 5th, 6th item online there for Vote. So that's the curve I think Radiance can try to ride, and it's more than likely going to rest on this Freya and on Tings. I wish we could have it, a counter that just said how many times he would start his ult but not fire it, because I think that threat on Spacestation, you had highlighted it earlier, maybe causing a little chaos to the comms, but also just showcasing how well-tuned Radiance are right now and to where they want to get the gank. Where do they see this kill opportunity? Do we want to go for it? Yes, no, and then whether or not they finally will. And sometimes you just throw it out just to see what can happen.
And you can tell that it's going to very likely be Radiant setting the pace just from looking at these relics, sort of to your credit, that Spacestation having to be sort of on guard. They've got more relics or more beads picked up, whereas Radiants have all these blinks. They're certainly going to be looking to get aggressive. As Cyclone Spin just pushed out Vote on the left-hand side, one for Benji, Aurora, and Adapting. They're looking to close the gap quickly while that Neath ultimate flying in and finish the fight before Spacestation can respond.
And there's not much you can do here if you're SSG. Again, you're playing the waiting game. You're trying to play the farm game. I actually think that the progress they can make on solo lane, right? Coming over here, you've got 3 members right now of Radiance in the area. I think this is where you could look to bully it. Cthulhu's been a menace if he gets into the late game untouched and unscathed. So try to shut down Nika early on. I think you have 2 halves of one whole that are going to cause a lot of trouble for you. It's Nika if he gets to the late game and he's confident, and Cthulhu. Put the 2 together, and all of a sudden I think it's going to fall apart. So I would love to see Radiance find something, but Nika's not really giving them a lot of opportunities.
It looked as though Radiance wanted the blue buff in Vey, but I think they were just a little bit early and maybe didn't realize that they could have had that timing after all. But clearly Radiance and you are on the same page here, Core, and that they want to try and put some pressure on this solo, and it's just way easier said than done. Cthulhu has so much safety, it needs to be so well coordinated, and we make it sound like this Achilles execute Neath ultimate World Weaver combo and the Nemesis there too to help out. It's such an easy thing to execute, but it's really not.
Oh no.
Calling it a hard counter is hardly fair in the heavy requirement that is needed to execute it, right? It's not the easiest thing in the world to pull off.
You just described 3 players with 3 separate abilities individually, all having to synchronize them up so that they can hit the execute threshold. Like, it's insane to think of what Radiance will have to do. There's so many mental calculations for it. Of course, sometimes it's just, hey guys, I hit 4 and that's all I can do for you. Let's see what happens. But I think the damage amp that you'll get from a Nemesis ult in that area is going to help you a lot. And if you see a Roar, then maybe there's some lockdown from his ult, and I think that's going to be the big play. 3 blinks online here for Radiance. We haven't really seen one come out just yet, and I'm wondering when they're going to want to jump in. I think a Roar is definitely an easy beads burner. Jump in. If you can get Dardes and Vote in one area, or Cherio and Dardes in one area, then you know for a fact you're going to burn their relics. That then opens up big man Tings to find a stun, or you can do it vice versa and have Tings burn the beads and a Roar get the pluck.
Trying to see if he can strip away this purple buff, but not quite successful. But I think it's worth a little bit talking about here, Core, that a Roar gets a lot of the attention in picks and bans. That was part of their discussion on the desk with the Hercules and the emoji getting banned away. That's why I think it's so critical for this team that Aurora continue demonstrating how powerful this Cerberus is. The more threats he has, the more difficult it becomes to play against this team. He's starting off with the Stone of Binding as well as that first item right after Boots, allowing him to get that debuff after the CC placed, and it's easily applied on a Cerberus. I think that showing this level of comfort with the god is going to make it even harder to play against Radiance in the future.
And it's one of those things, if you look at a lot of different gods, specifically that have been very high prioritized in the duo lane, one thing they all have in common is stripping protections. So hey, if I choose one that maybe doesn't have that easy application, let's just go ahead and get an item that enables me a little bit more, whether it's off the stun or the ult, which I think is going to be incredible there. It's just going to allow, like you said, easy follow-up, easy kills, potentially, for whatever Aurora sets up. And I actually love this Cerberus as well. I was kind of talking about him earlier when Ghost were, going through their pick ban phase, because it's something that they played in 2 games and then just he kind of disappeared. We were talking a lot about him. I think it was like even in week 2, maybe it was the beginning of week 3, and then he just didn't get picked up again. And it was like, man, he just kind of came and went, but he does so much. Even though he still feels great as a solo laner, he's got good sustain, good CC, and a lot of good setup to provide your team here from the support role, and I think Aurora is going to be able to showcase that as the game goes on.
Cyclone Spin, able to successfully strip away the alpha. They have struggled, though, to do much more than that. I mean, the purple buff had been getting defended. They couldn't get there for the blue buff on time. Space Station, if the plan is to try and coast into the late game with this draft, mid to late, then so far they're doing an excellent job of it. I mean, this game is 300 or so gold apart. The experience deficit very close as well. I mean, this is not out of reach for a Space Station by any means. It's pretty close to dead even, which is going to make life much easier for them, as it looks like Aurora wants to pull the trigger. Raffer has been grabbed. There's that World Weaver ultimate, but the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel gets him out of there easily. I like Radiance pulling the trigger, looking for aggression, but SSG were 2 heads up.
And I think it just showcases where or how difficult it's going to be to get that kind of lockdown, right? That's 2 ults and a stun prior to the ult just to get Raffer to use his ult for CC immunity, right? You trade 2 for 1, at least in terms of ult engagement, and maybe it's not the end of the world not to have the World Weaver in the middle of a team fight. It's not your make or break. It really is a lot of early gank setup potential, and then maybe some late game chase down potential. But you losing Aurora's ultimate, I think, slows down that potential. I mean, you're coming on 12 minutes into the game. They're just farming right now. And I think the fact that Aurora is looking for something, like you can feel it in the air that he wants to get aggressive. And at this point, it's burn beats, see what you can do. But Aegis is starting to come online. Dardes has his, almost at level 12, is going to be Vote. Those are going to be some very essential moments, I think, for SSG, because soon enough, their late game fight is going to be upon us.
The only area I feel like where either team could feel pretty good about how this has gone so far has got to be over there in the long lane, where Cyclone Spin has kept up this level and a half to about a level lead over Vote. Basically the whole game. No one is on their way over to kill Cyclone Spin for stepping up. Cherio's head is down. He is farming. He is not thinking about ganks right now, so that means Cyclone Spin is free to try and bully out this Jingwei. It's a Jingwei, not the easiest thing in the world to bully her out completely, but it has enabled a small little lead to develop. When this Freya can come over even slightly ahead, that can be enough for an edge.
It's this really weird dynamic, right, where Radiance have all of these great gank, early game potential kills, but SSG, everything in their lane can play very safe. They don't have to worry too much about it. And SSG, you know, there's so many people on Radiance that you could gank easily and find a kill off of, but they don't really have anyone that's going to find it easily this early on. Cherio with the Hebo in the jungle. Late game, we've already seen today how hard that hits. But it's not going to be until he finishes this next item that we're going to get to see it come to fruition here. Cherio, I love the fact that he's just playing it patient. He's not looking to try and force anything to happen if it's going to cost him farm. Instead, try to keep up with adapting. You're already, you know, a half a level up behind here. So you have to be careful where you're letting him find that advantage. Instead, keep the gold flowing, make sure you're in the right area. Once you finish off your next item, you can start looking for maybe a gank on mid, but again, Neath can backflip out of there, and it's pretty decent distance, so maybe hard to close the gap. Cyclone Spin has Banish, and at this point, I don't know if I want to put myself into a fight with a Freya intentionally. It's definitely something I'd maybe wait to see if we can isolate her in a 2v1, 3v1 situation.
I am surprised, though, that we haven't seen more of these gank attempts from Radiance so far. Neath is definitely still going to be strong. It's not a misplay, I wouldn't say necessarily, but it does kind of feel like you're missing one of her strongest windows, which is that ability to set up those side lane ganks and still have your mid laner get involved when the other team can't match it. So again, certainly not a misplay or anything like that, but it does feel like maybe even an opportunity being left a bit on the table to at least force SSG to show they can handle it.
And I was kind of expecting to see it be used, you know, kind of in this weird way of, I'm going to ult, see if we can get their beads, and then adapting can come in a little bit later and just tear them apart because they don't have anything to escape. But like you said, it's been much slower paced. I think we've seen a couple of World Weavers come out, one immune by an ult from Raffer, one that found the stun but didn't really ultimately find anything afterward. No kills, no follow-up. And so it's little fights like this that honestly might make the big difference over things like Oracle Harpies.
Yeah, it could end up potentially being a bigger fight, as it looks like Radiance want to step forward, but a good knockoff from Cherio. Putting that extra damage onto Cyclone Spin is enough to force Radiance to rethink this engagement. And we're right back over towards farming. Looks like Vote and Raph are going to split a bit of this farm in the long lane, which should help Cyclone Spin continue to push this lead up a little bit more, but it should provide Vote with some extra safety, as Radiance have regrouped over on this left-hand side of the map. They're still looking to try and push up.
One of my favorite things about games that go at this pace are realistically that whenever you start to see damage come out, it's going to blow your mind. It's not the early game poke you're used to, right? Like Cyclone Spin is going to hit as hard as a late game Freya at this point. He's going to chase you down now with that hastened ring. And so what I think SSG are hoping to do is, again, maybe find themselves in this 5v5 where they have all these items online and they feel comfortable. But you can hear it every time that World Weaver gets charged up. This time it's thrown out. They want blood on the side of Radiance, and honestly, they can find it with this kind of grouping.
Aurora might be able to find a solo kill. Good use of the Aegis. Keeps him alive, but Benji has made his way over. First blood does go to Radiance, even though Aurora ends up falling on the back end, and that is set up by Tings and Adapting's aggression in the middle lane. They forced out Dardez's beads.
And you're always happy for that. You get 2 relics, you get the kill, you get first blood, and you lose your support. Maybe you throw a couple ults out there, but who cares about that part? You came in and got what you needed. Granted, it hasn't really amassed to much. I mean, you were talking about it earlier. It's still only about 500 gold separating these two teams right now. It's whether or not they can find something big, but this is what I was trying to say earlier. You can't fight Cyclone Spin. Like, you can't take these fights on equal footing anymore because we essentially waited until these late game states almost to start the fights.
Yeah, he's got the Hasten Ring online now, and when you're playing Freya, man, she scales off attack speed like nobody else, just obviously gets to put out more damage. So even as good as Typhon's Fang is, you want something like the Hastened or a Demonic in that third slot, and then you can follow it up with the Typhons later if you feel like you need all that extra sustain. And Cyclone is swinging now. Gold Fury has been pulled. Vote's starting to step over, but 4 members of Radiance are here for this defense. Vote the only one to try and help it, but great use of that weave. Radiance secure the objective, and now they're on the retreat, and Space Station basically just watching. Now they've got the flank, though. Benji rotates over. They pinched SSG here inside the jungle, Gore.
Good body block as well to make sure that damage doesn't come through, but Big Man Tings finds a double kill!
He does, and then up into the sky goes Cyclone Spin. Dardes has been banished, lands back into the gumballs, and Cyclone Spin gets the 3rd kill of this engagement for Radiance. Now Nika, doing great work on the Cthulhu, does get this kill in the Cyclone, but he's stuck in between 4. That means another kill. It goes the way of adapting, and Space Station are fully on the retreat. We had nothing, no action leading up to it, then all of a sudden, a bloodbath at the Gold Fury.
And look at these death timers already, Finch. I mean, we're 18 minutes into the game. They're still gone for another 10 seconds. There's so much pressure you have on the map. Not enough that they feel safe enough to go for something like a Fire Giant, but they can definitely get a tower here. More than likely pressure out a Pyromancer with ease, and being able to strip away things in the jungle are going to make a big difference for them. And that's just the strength of Radiance. I think you called it perfectly when it happened. But Neith's passive, those weaves, they are insane when you can utilize them properly. It locks down Raffer away from it. It's a lot of burst damage onto the Gold Fury, and it's little things like that that I think are going to help not only showcase what Tings can do for this team, but give Radiance that small edge.
That's huge for Radiance. They're now up about 4,000 gold, a little bit less at 3,800, but still in an excellent spot at this point in the game now. And I think they're still walking into the point where they're the strongest. You saw that when Nika finally got involved, it did cause some problems, but Radiance were able to bring Benji over a little bit earlier, find that pincer, that pinch, that flank maneuver that put Space Station in such a bad spot. As long as they can continue coming into fights with that small positional advantage, and now with a very real gold and experience lead, 2-level leads for both of Radiance's carries, this job's gotten a lot harder for SSG in a very quick, all-of-a-sudden moment.
And there's only one tower missing from the map right now, right? Like, the gold lead they've now accrued through that Fury, through those kills, this 4,000 that they've picked up is just going to become even more tangible as they start to pick up objectives on the map. It feels awkward if you're SSG because you're trying to figure out how to fight back at this point, especially when Aurora is the one that's in your face. He's the one dictating where you're going to fight.
I felt like they were going to be close to a Fire Giant. Cyclone Spin showing presence in the solo lane already has got to make me think, or at least it would make me think if I was SSG, that Radiance are trying to control the right side of the map, and they absolutely are. They're now in position to start up the Fire Giant. Aurora has a Frenzy in the back pocket. That'll be the signal for when they're really serious about this engagement. Raffer has been stunned already, but Radiance not hard committing. Though Cyclone Spin the furthest forward, they should have a moment to reset.
And I love the trigger discipline from Cyclone Spin more than anything. They get this tower, but no ult was used there from Cyclone, even though he did feel like he was almost caught out for just a second. It's the pressure, though. Look how far back SSG have to be. If you fall back, if you do pop that Frenzy, you're ready to go.
Raffer's been pulled back in. Stygian Torment gets one, but the response from Nika is even better. Aurora has to retreat, and Cyclone Spin too far forward. Cheerio finds the kill, and that is it for the Mage ADC, at least for now. SSG's patience starting to pay off as big man Tings gets caught out as well, but SSG have to slow it down a little bit. They're going to keep surging forward. They recognize Benji is over in solo lane all alone, but can they lock him down? This death ball from SSG has successfully defended at least once.
When you gotta look at how fast that came out. I mean, Cyclone Spin, ult up, beats up, Aegis did come up right after he died, so give him some credit there that he wasn't able to immune at least a little bit of that. But, I mean, so much in order to save himself that was available, and all of it kind of seeps through just because SSG knew what target they wanted to go for. And, you know, Aurora forced out incredibly fast from that fight. That Tier 2 really doing a lot of work for them, at least in terms of grouping them up and maybe giving Radiance some false confidence in terms of their aggression. It's only one kill, though, and Cyclone Spin's going to be back. It maybe alleviates the pressure, but it hasn't solved the issue, which is the fact that Radiance are not only running rampant, but they still have that confidence. They're going for your jungle buffs. They have control of the flow of the map. And with a Primal Fury about to spawn, with Pyromancer coming up shortly after that, there's just going to be a couple more objectives for them to try and take outside of the Fire Giant.
It's tough, though. I think what we're starting to see now is that Radiance are struggling a bit with their engage. I mean, Aurora up at the front of the fight finds the Stygian Torment, brings them back, but SSG with this Descent into Madness ultimate from Nika, with the potential for instant burst from Cheerio, and I mean instant with how quickly that damage from the Crushing Wave can come through. Cyclone Spin in one moment is in the right spot, and then the very next moment is out of position and suddenly gets punished. That's the thin margins that Radiance are working with. As they decide to move over towards the Primal Fury, this should make any future Fire Giants more easy, and it looks like Space Station don't recognize it. They don't contest at all.
And I love how Benji and Aurora play that, just because they get a little aggressive in mid, making SSG react to where they're getting aggressive as opposed to where they should be looking, right? That Fury, something you could have contested. A lot of people of SSG are over there in the neighborhood of that Fury, but you're not able to do anything if you're worried about getting collapsed on or CC'd down with the follow-up that Benji and Aurora can apply. So I think they play it very well, and now they've made the appropriate rotation over here to just keep SSG on their toes. Pyromancer's going to be spawning in a second, so that's going to be a big objective, but most of these teams, right now, they're looking at the Fire Giant, how they can get it, what advantage they can have, specifically in the pit, but also ward coverage is going to be crucial here to try and keep track of Cherio, make sure that he's not going to get into the back line, make sure you know where Nika is, because that Cthulhu, once he lets his presence be known, it's so easy to keep track of him because he's massive, but that ult is going to be maybe the biggest debuff for you. If you try to jump in and get aggressive, Nika just has to press forward, go up, and all of a sudden the tide of the fight can change.
Yeah, all of a sudden you just can't stick around anymore. Cthulhu commands that much space. It feels like taking a quick moment to round up some of these builds before the fight kicks off. Hopefully, before it kicks off as Benji gets aggressive. It's Berserker Shield into Heartseeker for Dardes. Not what I feel like we normally see from these Heimdall mids, but that is an ability-focused type of build. He wants it to hurt when you get connected by the ultimate, though, by the Heimdall, by the Gallarhorn, rather. So he's got a lot helping him out. And then, taking a look down at Cyclone Spin, no Typhon's Fang for him. It's all these rings, Hastened Ring, Demonic Grip, and Telekines. He wants as much value, attack speed-wise, as possible.
And it's one of those things, especially right now, you can slot in a late-game Typhon's Fang, and then all of that passive will then start proccing off the lifesteal that you have built up, plus all of that attack speed. The power will just kind of mount on itself, and it'll be able to change anything. Or he can just go other options. I think the lifesteal, option being available for late-game boxing can keep you alive. Sometimes you just want to kill him dead, and Freya does that really well, really quickly with a build like this. She's got more than 4 fingers, so the rings look fine. I think this is going to be very solid for him. The thing that kind of caught my eye is the fact that Big Man Tings, you have Heimdall and Dardes going almost pure ability base, and Big Man on Neath has actually gone into this little bit of a hybrid, a little bit of attack speed, some chins there towards the end, the Atalantas as well for the penetration, and it's something that flows well and I think fits with the character, but normally you wouldn't be surprised if you saw the Heartseeker on Neath, a Soul Eater even on Neath, because of how well those abilities can work and how much she is almost ability reliant.
Clearly, that's where the value is meant to come from Dardes. We have had a couple of spikes of aggression, Gore, but for the most part, this has been plateaus. It's been a very patiently and slowly played game from these two teams. But I think they're recognizing the weight of this match, especially with Ghost dropping earlier. First place is starting to seem a lot more in the cards than perhaps was expected. Now, it's a long phase. This is over weeks. Every team plays each other 3 times opposed to just 2 from phase 1. But still, the weight of these matchups is apparent from both of these two teams.
Well, it's exactly what you said. You play each other 3 times. Last time, you get a 1-1 split, we had to go into tiebreakers and things that would break through whether or not you were even. Now it's all about who can win those 2 sets over you, and maybe even take all 3.
That's twice that Cyclone Spin ends up too low too quickly in these fights. Some part of the positioning is not quite there. They've gotten Dardes low in the backline as well, but still, they don't have their Freya for any of this. Cyclone Spin has to back. It's a TKO for SSG, though it comes at the cost of that ultimate from Nika. Space Station, though, gladly keeping Radiance at bay as Rapper continues to step forward. Now he's able to disengage, and Radiance will take their time to reset as well.
The Thorns, the ult down for Nika, though, I think gives a lot of opportunity for Radiance. They lose the Blink, they lose their Frenzy on Aurora, but I don't think Aurora needs that to make this work. I think those Thorns for Nika, even though it's not the end-all be-all, are at least enough to thwart some damage coming out. Now, Cyclone's back and hitting just as hard, and now they want to get aggressive.
But how do you walk in? The Mire says no. That's Cthulhu controlling space in these choke points and denying the follow-up. So Radiance think better of it. They're going to come back towards the Fire Giant and force SSG into them. You come through our choke points instead. But Aurora takes a lot of damage up front. That's the Fire Giant for Radiance. SSG never made it in, so there doesn't even have to be a fight. Radiance just took the objective.
I mean, what do you want to credit to? I'm just going to say great zoning, right? I mean, Radiance didn't really do much in order to stop Space Station there. They just said, hey guys, yeah, no, like, the bouncer outside of the club that is the Fire Giant pit, and they just said no. They just tossed you to the curb and didn't let you in. I was looking at it, I'm like, Cherio's got his ult, Dardes has got some more ability-based items, so I expect maybe he could get some damage in there. I'm looking for all this steal potential, and it was almost wasted energy considering what SSG were able to do with it, but they still have that space control you had highlighted. Kind of surprising to see them split up. You notice Cherio, I think, now backing in the jungle. Vote over there on left as well. There's a lot of towers available, but Radiance are kind of going to be able to run the map, especially now that they have this Fire Giant.
They should be able to. They already took the tier 2 over in right, have that wave relatively pushed up, push up a little bit in mid, but they can come group around this Primal Fury as well. Grab this, maybe even take a full reset after this, and spend some of this money, and then step back. And it looks like SSG have recognized the Cyclone Spin again is the target, but he makes his way out of there now. 2 members thrown back. Benji alongside Aurora in some trouble as they've been brought down low. SSG have sprung a trap, but I don't think Radiance were expecting a little bit of damage being sent Aurora's way, but so far, still standing. Dardes finally cuts him down, and Radiance hoping they could finally get the reset they thought they could get easily.
Well, they're going to go ahead and buy some time here. That's what Spacestation Gaming, everything they're going to look at. And because Vote was already in this lane, they cleared up a lot of minions. They actually have the pressure in left, and that's not normally something you get to do against a team with Fire Giant. It should at least be that tier 2 that they just grabbed. But it's buying time. I mean, you've got 2 minutes on this Fire Giant already gone, only 2 minutes left that you're going to be able to utilize this buff. And because of that, I'll call it a forced back. Yeah, they wanted it, but realistically, they wanted it on their own terms there for Radiance. You're going to be able to get those items. You get that thing, you know, your Fail Not, your Typhon's Fang. If your Cyclone Spin, you're excited because now you're going to be able to hit harder either after your ult or for Cyclone. You get some much-needed sustain and more power that he is going to need because a lot of these times he's the one getting caught out. But with no relics, I mean, no beads there for Big Man Tings, nothing up for Cyclone Spin in terms of his relics. It's a little dangerous to try and get aggressive even with Fire Giant.
SSG has committed a few resources themselves, but in the relic department, they're feeling a lot better than some of these other ones, or than how Radiance would be feeling, as you just went over a lot of their relics on cooldown. But I still like the idea that Radiance are electing to be aggressive. They're grouping up for the tier 2 in left. That should be theirs. Renegades, rather, Space Station, not in position to defend. That's a tier 2 tower down. But Radiance still playing it slow. Going to head back towards mid. Still haven't quite decided where they want to group. Perhaps going to grab this last tier 2. But they're not going to have a whole lot time left with this Fire Giant buff core to do much other than collecting these last few towers.
Yeah, 45 seconds, you can maybe force a fight here, but SSG are grouping up in a way that indicates they want to try to deflect it and save this one. It's a lot of gold that you could lose, but that's going to be the ult from Neath onto Dardes to start things off.
Not able to follow up on it, though. SSG do a great job, but look at Nika getting popped like a pimple. Cyclone Spin gets credit for that kill. Aurora moves in with the Stygian Torment, is able to grab at least one. SSG still choosing to live or die on this tier 2 tower. 31 minutes into the game, my head, I'm scratching. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but Radiance get the 2 for 0. The tier 2 tower is still standing for what it's worth, but they've already got Cheerio on the run as well. The turnaround knock up, and Benji falls as well. It turns it into a 2 for 1.
That's why you gotta be careful getting aggressive against something as powerful as a Hebo jungle, especially late game. I mean, look, full build, he's ready to go.
Okay.
And no, why did you go back in?
I don't understand a single bit of it, to tell you the truth here, Gore. Imagine playing this patiently for 30 actual human minutes, and then now, underneath the mid-tier 2 towers, suddenly they're throwing it all to the wind.
Have you ever seen an Odysseus' bow get such a great proc for you? Like, Vote's just sitting there so happy that went the way it did. There's no reason he should have a double kill right there. And that felt... I was ready to start calling it, saying, okay, Radiance, they're going to be able to get this. They popped the mistake that was what Nika's positioning when he moved forward, and they're ready to just kind of take an iron grip on this game and slowly push themselves towards victory. And then in one fell swoop, SSG are not only back in it, but now, even though they're down in gold, it feels like they're commanding the map. The pressure is definitely theirs to be had because we're still waiting on Aurora and Cyclone to respawn.
And Radiance are now starting to struggle with how they break open Space Station in a full-on 5v5. Radiance have shown they can split the map. Radiance have shown they can take objectives. Radiance have shown that in these fractured engagements they can win. But when they've got to try and find a way to push into all of Space Station, that is where we're seeing a few of these late-game struggles. We're only got 14 kills in 32 minutes, but I think SSG have kind of made it clear at this point that you're going to have a hard time fighting into this team fight from their 5 gods.
This is exactly what I expect out of a set like this, Finch. I mean, you get two teams that are at the top, literally one of them fighting to remain in first and remain undefeated. It really is the, did you just make one mistake? Did you make one small call that's going to end up, you know, coming back to bite you? Because that's what both of them thrive on whenever it comes down to it. You know, we get to talk about it, and it's maybe showcased when they're playing any of the teams in 5th through 8th a little bit more. But up here, it's just, hey, you know, Nika took one step outside of the tower, that was enough. Hey, Cyclone and Aurora decided maybe we could continue to fight. And then it was just too much for them. I think what they're doing here is showcasing why these little mistakes are so crucial to keep your head into the game. I mean, you had mentioned it, but 30 full minutes of gameplay, and a small mistake like that is all it takes to potentially start losing
Maybe
the game.
small.
One more of those,
I don't
you
know.
might be able to turn it around and lose your Titan.
I don't know. I'm a little angrier than you are, I guess, Score. I mean, because Benji chases Cheerio off on his own and just gets popped. I don't know, man. It's odd that they had the protractors out for the first 30 minutes, calculating it to that level of degree, and then here at the mid-tier 2, you know, it's all being thrown to the wind. It means that they need to take a deep breath from where I'm sitting and make sure they're calming back down. Clearly, they were able to get those 2 picks. They were able to punish Nika when he stepped up, so we don't need to, you know, to go chasing off this Hebo with all that turnaround potential or be dropped in front of this mid-tier 2. Radiance are still in a strong position if they can make sure they're keeping their heads on their shoulders.
And, you know, I honestly have to take it back. If I was to describe the pace of this game, this is a Space Station paced game, not a Radiance paced game. Like, they are definitely the ones still dictating the pace, even though they're 10,000 gold down right now. It is much to the flow that they typically like.
Now they've managed to catch out Raffer. Got some good damage on it, but not enough for the kill. Raffer rejoins the squad. It's Benji that looks like he was in a bad fight, now down to half HP. Radiance will take this moment to breathe. Benji might even be able to find a reset here. He does not have teleport. He has beads and blink, so he's going to be walking it back to rejoin the fight.
Odds that he uses Blink to try and close the gap to get back faster? Probably not very high. Still, option maybe is there. But the way things are going here, I'm wondering if there's maybe a little bit of impatience. You know, you said keep their heads about it here for Radiance. But if you're playing a game and it is definitely, you know, it's a meta adapting, Tings, Benji, Aurora, all of them have played in before where it's a little bit slower, little mistakes or big mistakes, whatever they are, will absolutely cost you a game. I think it's that moment where you're just like, you know what, we're 30 minutes in, we could kill this guy. We just showcased we could kill this guy. Maybe we get more aggressive, and that's what SSG thrive on. That's the way they play. They love the counter fight, and that's something that I think is going well here. I mean, look at them. They're not positioned to take a Fire Giant. They're positioned to run in after you think you can get it and try to thrash you because you've got a little overzealous. And that's something I think Raffer, both relics available here, a blink as well as that horrific emblem, could just slow things down. It's also going to be great if you can get that onto someone like Cyclone Spin or Big Man Tinks at the beginning of a fight and stop them from being able to hit as hard as they do, slow their attack speed down a little bit, makes it easier for Vote, for Dardes, for Cheerio, or maybe honestly just for Nika to stay alive and to get into that backline and take them down.
Vanish does end up landing on the Raffer. Stun there to follow up, and Raffer seeing the full wrath of the damage that Radiance have online at this point. That might even be a full reset for Raffer here at this point, but he's still stepping forward. He doesn't think that there's time for a reset, and I think he might be right. Radiance are forcing this. There's the World Leader. Vote has become the target. The ultimate from adapting used as well, but Space Station are on the run with low health bars for Vote, low health bars for Raffer. How can SSG come back in?
Well, there's a lot of ults down for Radiance, and they've been using their relics as well. I don't know if there's a lot. There's the Frenzy Pop, though. They want to get aggressive, and Nika's going to be the one that they try to take down.
Radiance get the Fire Giant, though. Nika's in the ultimate. That should prevent the chase from Radiance on the backside. He controls so much space that exactly like this, Radiance have to slow down. But it should mean now that Radiance have a chance for an actual Phoenix Siege. We haven't gotten to see them somehow in 36 minutes siege of Phoenix just yet. But now, with this second Fire Giant of the game going down, we're going to see how SSG look on defense.
There's a lot of mental weight, I think, riding on the rest of this game. You've spent so much time, patiently playing to this point that, honestly, I don't know if Game 2 feels as good. You're using a lot of your mental capacity to stay focused on this one. Because one mistake at this point, for anybody's health bar, including the tanks it seems, it means you're dead. Especially if it's Big Man Ting's Cyclone Spin that are looking at you. But there's going to be the World Weaver. They're trying to start this off.
But good peel from Nika. That prevented Aurora from getting to the back line like he wanted. Raffer takes a lot of damage to the front of the fight as well as the crits clearly starting to come through. That's just Fail not doing all that work for Tings. Not bad. As into the back line goes Benji. Can't find much more room in, but they are crushing the Phoenix at this point. EFG plus fully 6 slotted means the Phoenixes don't stand much of a chance. SSG thank their lucky stars that they only lost 1.
And we're at the point where, for some people on Radiance, and I believe SSG at this point, they're going to be able to get rid of their boots and come back in with that full finalized item. And you can already see that in Freya. I think having the Pythags piece alongside the Typhon's Fang, the lifesteal you get from Hecate, Cyclone Spin is a menace when it comes down to the damage he's going to be doing. Still 3-3-3, so maybe the slash line doesn't get to reflect how much he's doing. But when you look at his player damage, number 4, and honestly, when you look at the people who are right above him, he's sitting right next to Big Man Tings, not a bad deal. And then Cthulhu and Hebo. Both of those, they do enough damage that I'm not really crying over the Freya not being up there. Although I would like to see him be a little more proactive in the fight. It feels like he's either pushed out a little too early on, his health bar gets, decimated within a few seconds, or he's a little too late to the party. If he could find that right engagement time, which is difficult to do at this point, but if he could get in there, it's going to be the complete difference for Radiance.
You're not wrong that Cyclone Spin has had some struggles with this positioning, but it's not his fault. SSG are looking for him, man. If he steps up, the knock-up is there from Cheerio. They're putting out the poke from this Heimdall. It is a very difficult equation indeed, but you're right that it's critical for Cyclone Spin to figure out the exact perfect place to stand in these engagements to get off the maximum damage without being blown up by SSG, as has been their goal. It looks like the left side Phoenix Siege is going to be the target, with Adapting pushed off to push up mid.
Well, there's a lot of pressure here, I think, to get aggressive. And Big Man Tings, you can hear that World Weaver charging. Who they choose as a target, Finch, is going to be crucial for them. Because it's the difference of, did we just burn a beads, did we get a kill? I think right now, Raffer, as hard as it is to kill him because he's a fully itemized tank, might be one of the easier targets to lock down for them. And it might help them open this up. But Vote, burning his beads, burning his Aegis is also a huge play and a huge win for them. As Adapting might be going in a 1v1, but it might become a 1v2 faster than he wants.
He is. Got a little bit of backup there from Cherry. I don't know how he smelled that one out, but it does mean that Radiance have the 4v3. They'll push in the left side, grab that left side Phoenix, and Nika can't even afford to stick around. Benji gets the kill. Execute can't catch up to Rapper, and he backsteps the crushing wave. Benji showing up for him on the left side Phoenix Siege. That means now just one Phoenix in the middle lane. 4 members of FSSG are holding on to defend against Radiance.
But the thing is like you said, only one Phoenix still standing. Yeah, you're great at staying alive right now. That's phenomenal. But it doesn't mean much if you're still losing the objective at the end of the day. Still a minute left before Fire Giant respawns. Primal Fury is available. Pyromancer will come up. Actually, a little bit after all the rest of them. We might not see another one this game because Radiance seem to be pulling the reins back in their favor. Fire Minions are going to be helping them. That Primal Fury is going to help melt down one more enhanced Fire Giant for him. And again, this is the last real amount of gold that you're going to be seeing, at least put into items, as they start to sell off their boots and finish everything off. So now look for the power potions like we just saw there. For Big Man Tings, ward coverage is going to be huge for them. And the aggression that they're going to have, the damage that they're going to have at this point, it's almost ludicrous when you're someone like Nika and Raffer. You have these huge builds, but you're still getting decimated if you get caught out.
But Radiance did manage to recenter themselves, Gore, which I think was pretty important. They played more patiently around that Fire Giant fight, waited for Raffer to get a little bit too far out of position, and they burned him. That opened up for them to get the FG, and then they went and played patiently on the Phoenix Sieges, put a little bit of poke out, and were able to open up the door. But SSG are coming out to defend. They're not going to give up the Fire Giant for free, trying to catch catch Radiance off guard. There's the ultimate, and Rapper melts immediately like butter into the backline. Goes Aurora, crushing wave again, finds little value, only allows Cheerio to reposition, and Nika has got to run. He's a big old target, and Cyclone Spin is hunting. Nika turns around though for the knockouts, but that is the FG for Radiance as they've got the 5v4.
I was a little curious as to what happened to Radiance. I was like, man, you could have killed Nika like it was nothing. Oh, they wanted the Fire Giant. It's going to make the rest of this so much easier. 40 seconds without Raffer. This Phoenix just respawned, but it's still going to be weakened. You can just walk in and take this down. And SSG, I mean, their defense so far hasn't been enough, and they're missing some big relics without Raffer, some big ults without Raffer. That might honestly be the final straw that breaks the camel's back.
Certainly should break the back of this middle. Phoenix, one would think. Fire minions in left are just about to break through the plane and make their way into the Titan room. In the backline, though, great ultimate from Dart as he has found himself a target. In the backline, though, Frenzy popped. That means Radiant's looking for the fight. Benji's low, has to disengage, but the Titan is down to half HP and on its very last leg. But Radiance can't afford to stick around. SSG have done enough to push them back out.
Raffer's now respawned, Benji's incredibly low, Cyclone Spin was getting targeted a little bit, he's full health now, but there was a lot of damage being dealt by Cheerio. It's just awkward to try and force things to happen where they might not, but look at adapting. I love where he's sitting. He's been waiting here, twice this game now, and maybe that's not a whole lot, but the fact that he's just waiting to see if SSG are either going to make a mistake, send one person over here to try and clear fire minions, that he can maybe get a solo kill, and with the positioning of his team, now the healing of his team, since Benji's back at full health, means that they can get right back in there and take that Titan down like it's nothing.
It's low, it's exposed, and it should be easy enough. Good work from Dardes at the Aegis. He immune to the damage from the World Weaver to start this fight off. All the way on the side is Benji the Achilles trying to force in minions from the left lane. But SSG are huddled up and defending on this Titan. But Cyclone Spin is trying to move in, goes up at the ultimate and waiting on him as the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. He uses beads as the response, but ends up taking a bunch of damage. Dardes does put out some damage, but the response from Tings is better. He gets the double kill. Cherry ends up falling. Boat is low and heading back towards the fountain. I think Radiance have finally gotten the job done. SSG couldn't hold on. In 44 mittens, the Titan falls.
It was an SSG-paced game, but Radiance played it just stronger. Throughout most of the phases of that, you see them dictating where on the map any fight is going to happen. They're forcing SSG to play way too reactively, and so SSG, even in the moments where it felt like they could finally get aggressive, didn't have any options left. I think the one time we see them win a defense, they end up chasing people down, and there's nothing left on the map for them to do. There's nothing for them to collapse in on. There's nothing to try and pull the game back in their favor. And so they just had to wait, and unfortunately Radiance recognized that, saw it, and abused it as much as they could to make sure they constantly were in the lead and never felt threatened.
Radiance did a great job holding on here in this game, patiently played, dragging SSG the full distance and punishing the few mistakes that were there. Radiance now up 1-0 and looking pretty good to hold on to that undefeated record.
Really the length that we figured we would see here between these two teams, kind of to that point. 44 minutes between Radiance and SSG, but holding on till the end there, finally getting themselves some pressure on the map, and then 44 minutes Radiance take game number one and go up 1-0 in the set. Mifflin with me, though, to break down what we saw. Miff, I mean, there was a lot of pressure early, I think, from SSG onto the long lane for Radiance. Really, Cyclone Spin and Aurora were the only two with, maybe heavier blemishes in that in the death column, but able to stay present in the game. Freya is always going to scale moving on, so great game from them there in the long lane.
Yeah, Freya's always going to scale moving on, especially if she's allowed to get to that 6th item slot, the true 6th item. I think the only thing sweatier than that match might have been me, but I got to give some shout-outs to BMT, man. This guy proved to us that Neath in the middle role is not just this ultimate bot. He's able to get involved in these team fights, make his stamp known. I mean, it's not easy to come out at top damage in that long of a game on this ability-focused hunter, especially on Neath.
That's right. That's good stuff there. Well done by you, Miff. 5-0-7 for Neath here. This one, BMT certainly showing his worth. And I like that we're starting to highlight it a little bit. This has really been, right, like a Radiance mindset around this Neath in the mid lane. We've seen a little bit of it here and there, maybe once or twice from other teams here in the SPL. But Radiance have absolutely loved this pick, and for good reason, Miff. I mean, you look at the impact that Big Man Tings is able to have in these fights. Even here, he's on the opposite side of the Fire Giant pit, still putting out damage and impacting the fight on the other end. So I think BMT 8.5 KDA in this one, maybe the reason or one of the biggest reasons that Radiance was able to grab the win.
And it really does bring a lot to your pressure in the early game as well. This Neath wasn't getting involved for the first 20 minutes. All he was there for was to make sure that, all right, well, they're diving Cyclone Spin over in the duo lane. Maybe I drop a Spirit Arrow right on their chest, stun them in the spot. Or maybe we're looking for some pressure in the Soul lane, do the exact same thing. And then on late game, oh, by the way, guys, I actually am a late game hunter too, so maybe I just deal 40,000 damage for the one time. He looks really good on this pick. I don't think we're going to see SSG give up that strong of a draft again. I mean, Freya just can't be allowed through. There's a reason we really haven't seen her that much since week 1, and then Cyclone's been showed it there. If you stand in front of him, you're going to die.
Yeah, the issue with having to ban out Aurora is that you let some strong picks through on the other side. I thought as well that Radiance did a very good job of limiting the Cthulhu pressure here in this game. I mean, the Achilles pick, I think, went a long way. The last time I checked, I think 217 is where he was towards the end, so maybe add a kill, add an assist there through the final stretch. I think the Achilles did its job in mitigating this Cthulhu, and I think that's something we're starting to see here, Mifflin, is more and more teams starting to learn how to deal with Cthulhu. I mean, he still is a massive bit of pressure into these team fights, but at week after week, the pressure being returned to Cthulhu, I think, is noticeable.
But even then, this Cthulhu, even under that pressure, even with the counter pick and Achilles, even having to deal with that Neath Global Ultimate, even having to stand in front of a Freya, he was still getting huge amounts of CC off. He was top of his team in the damage charts, nearly top of the game as well. It's a very strong pick, and that just goes to show Radiance brought a draft that they thought could handle it, and even then, we saw tons of pressure coming out from him. These gods are so strong. When you have to dedicate your bans to these target ban players, as you stated earlier, it's going to leave these strong picks open. Sure, you can work around it, but only so much.
A lot left open here, notably the Hercules and the Yamoja, both left unbanned. SSG being in that first pick slot generally will open that up here. Radiance able to take one or the other depending on what gets through. Cthulhu still available as well. So I think SSG actually in an okay spot here support-wise. They don't necessarily have to take one or the other unless they want to decide which one Aurora cannot play. And Yamoja is the answer here. So maybe Radiance then Mifflin start to look towards the Cthulhu, the Hercules, a lot still on the table for the second pick.
Oh, man, giving Radiance Hercules, dude. This is going to be a tough one for SSG. If I don't see this Cthulhu flanked by a Hercules in this first phase of picks, it's telling me that Radiance is sleeping on SSG. Aurora is so absolutely dominant on that character. But I think it makes sense that Raffer decides to take the Yamoja for himself. We haven't really seen him pilot the Hercules. We have, however, seen him get huge value out of Yamoja to split up these team fights. And it's also a very good counter pick into Cthulhu, as is Nemesis. So maybe it makes a little bit of sense that Aurora is going to wait a little bit on his pick just to make sure that SSG don't get that nice counter.
Right, unless SSG want to send Hercules over to the solo lane, I guess Radiant's not necessarily against the clock just yet. So they'll take Cthulhu, they'll take Nemesis, and SSG will take Hera. Mifflin, a pick that wasn't available for a little while, now is available and will make her debut in Phase 2 of the SPL here. Big damage output. But do you like SSG locking her in for Dardas?
Maybe not as much as you do, Dave, but I do absolutely love seeing Dardas lock this Hera in. Damage potential, CC potential, self-peel. You got a Bubble Buddy inside of Argus, unofficial 6th man. Hera's bringing every bit of it, but Hera is very immobile. Playing against a Cthulhu, what's Hera going to do once Cthulhu goes into the sense of madness? She's going to get knocked up constantly. She's going to get locked down. Nemesis is going to immediately alter every single team fight. Cupid's got a fantastic ult target. Fields of Love, yeah, Hera's going to have to sit in that and just tank up that Mez. There's so much here that Hera's going to have to deal with that, sure, Riptide should help out a little bit, bringing her some mobility outside of her own kit. But even then, man, this is going to be a lot of pressure on the mid laner.
Right, I mean, maybe you hit a polymorph, that's kind of your self-peel there if you're Hera, but for all the reasons you listed, and what I assume will be more here is Radiance round out their draft. Difficult to be a Hera here at this level. So Hercules unpicked for Radiance, which I find surprising, but obviously showing Aurora is comfortable on the suite of support gods here. So Hercules will be banned, Bracken will as well. And then a Robin and Achilles to round out the ban phase here for Radiance. You look towards SSG, little bit of what they still might need. Something in that warrior class. With Amaterasu gone, you have Cthulhu locked in here as well. I'll be interested to see where Nika goes, but a Ganesh locked in for Aurora. The Dharmic Pillars, I think, will find some good value in his hands.
Huge value. Again, another fantastic pick into this Hera. Drop Dharmic Pillars. You don't have to hit her with it. As long as she's in the middle, she's going to get at least zoned out. Worst case, forced to walk through and lose out on a majority of her health bar. It's not easy for a Hera to survive into this comp, but she's flanked by some pretty strong stuff. Yamoja Sustain and Stun from a range. Rom should be able to finish up any kill that escapes out of that burst potential from Hera. And Sun Wukong and Erlang Shen as your frontliners. You can't do much better than that.
Well, I hesitate to ask you to predict, but maybe seems like Cherio and Erlang Shen out of the jungle, and then a Wukong over in the solo lane. Is that sort of something, or maybe where your mind goes here with the SSG draft?
I'm thinking so for sure. Sun Wukong jungle can absolutely work, but with recent item changes, Soul Eater out of that solo lane means that there's going to be huge amounts of sustain. He can get that stat stick and stack it up very easily. Should be able to sustain himself through the lane against Cthulhu as well. Shouldn't get bullied out nearly as much as an Erlang would. And Erlang's gank potential is just all there. You got the ranged pin. You can get the knock-up from the turtle form or even a ferret for additional damage. I like what we have here, but Reigns' draft, man, this thing is very strong. Cupid, Cthulhu, Merlin, they got some of the best in class for just about every single pick.
Yeah, Big Man Tings gets Merlin with the final pick in the draft. He's got to be happy. Radiance one game away from remaining undefeated. Can SSG take game 2? We'll dive in to find out.
And they'd be alone at the top if they could remain undefeated for Radiance. That is what's on the line. SSG, on the other hand, has already dropped to one of the top teams. I believe it was Ghost, so losing to Radiance here could push them even further down the standings. A lot on the line for both of these teams, Gore, as you, I, and Doug take us into this second match.
The question I have is whether or not this is going to be as slow-paced and patient as the first game. I think Radiance, once again, find themselves in an interesting position where I think Aurora can get aggressive, Adapting can get aggressive early on, but with Big Man Tings now on that Merlin, I feel like you're not going to have the same like level 5 setup potential. Cupid does bring those Fields of Love, so maybe you can start looking for objectives. There's some team fights right around then. But this feels like, you know, at least for game trajectory, should go the same path unless Cherio on the other side and Raffer really decide that they want to get aggressive. They want to make sure that things go a little faster.
Yeah, I mean, we thought the pace was going to be a bit faster in that first game. At the very least, that Radiance might look for some ganks, so it's hard for me to predict at this point, but I'm with you in that we might still be seeing a slightly slower paced one from Radiance. SSG, on the other hand, though, with this Erlang Shen jungle, they've got the potential to start getting involved here right away. But again, I'm a little bit gun-shy, perhaps, about predicting about how these games will go with that 45-minute banger we had for the first one. Hard to predict where things were going to go in that one, but I think that the desk is correct to say that Radiance have a strong draft. I like the look of all of these tools that they've got.
I mean, when you get to the late game, you know, Fields of Love going to cause a lot of trouble for you. Same thing can be said for Dharmic Pillars. We just saw what Cthulhu could do. In a losing scenario, Cthulhu was still able to be top damage and just absolutely stop aggression from Radiance. So I think that's going to be a good pick. But that counter pickup that they kind of stripped away from SSG, coming in the form of this Nemesis, once again getting Adapting on something he's comfortable on. But I think it's just going to help him out. I mean, Wukong, typically good at staying alive. Now he's got a much faster threshold that he can get melted in, so he has to react a little quicker. Raffer, you get rid of him, you get rid of a lot of combat healing and out-of-combat healing there for SSG, and it will kind of strip away some of the strength that Yamoja brings to these late-game teamfights. So I think as time goes on, it's better for him.
Adapting, getting aggressive there as they fight over those mid-harpies. Even with Cherio and Dardes nearby, my man was feeling confident. But as you mentioned, that late-game healing certainly could be a bit of a factor here, or the mitigation of it, as you were pointing out. But SSG should still feel pretty good about their fight when they're grouped. They're going to have that big, bulky body in Argus there from Dardes to help them out, and Raffer should be able to isolate the fight with that River's Rebuke ultimate and get them a bit of a favorable engage. Space Station shouldn't have to wait till the 40-minute mark to start feeling good about their chances in this match.
Oh, not at all. Honestly, based on what we just saw from Cherio and Dardes around the mid-camps, I feel like we could start seeing them get maybe more aggressive now, although I doubt that it's, in their playbook. It's not the SSG style Finch. So maybe they're still going to slow roll it, but I do think they have that little bit of an advantage going into this. And specifically Dardes, Hera's not someone you get to play against often. If you've been playing Smite for the last couple of months, you haven't gotten to play against her herself too often, so maybe your practice against Hera herself isn't as up to date as you would like. But we've seen how game-changing it can be. I mean, Dardes took a pick that no one else plays and still plays it just better than anybody else in the league can, and it's something only SSG can really run, or at least so far have run, successfully, consistently at this high level.
Hey, on the SPL waiting room, I said we'd see more Hera, so I don't know if I can 100% go with you, but Hindu Man, you can hold this L. I don't think we've seen the RDO yet, bud. You can just, I guess you can take that. And
oh yeah, Hera's way more likely. Until PPM's back in the game,
yeah. Back me up, yeah. Yeah, I love that. We got Gore backing me up here, too. Hindu Man isn't even here today, so he just got to hold that L, can't even defend himself. We love that. But, yeah, I'm with you in terms of Dardes bringing unique value with this pick that I don't know that anyone else can. And even though I am kind of feeling Radiance's draft, because we know that Dardes is playing the Hera, it makes me hesitate a little bit. He's able to get more value out of this than just about anybody else, able to play it a little bit more freely as well, too. He really trusts that Shroud to be able, that third ability to be able to get him out of trouble, that shield and the movement speed, and is able to play with it well. His vote brings the stun over Raffer just to say hello. I trust Dardes as well on this Hera pick, and it makes me a bit worried for Radiance's late game.
And that shield, later on, it can be massive. It can save you. Yeah, it's not mobility, but honestly, in terms of damage and at least disengage, it can be pretty massive. And this is going out on a limb so thin that I could fall off of it. But there is a chance, depending on how much of a nuisance Dardes gets, if killing him is a priority, I honestly wouldn't even be against something like a Sunder to break that shield. But sure, it's going to, at level 12, I don't think that's going to be when he's the problem. The problem is you have to predict how much of a problem is Dardes going to be 10 minutes from now after I hit this level 12 mark and get that second relic. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not picked up here. Cherio's in trouble.
Yeah, Radiance full on commit. They've already used the ultimate from adapting, and he finds First Blood in this game, shutting down his direct opposition in Cheerio, and that is a bad sign if you're rooting for Space Station. I don't think you want your warrior jungle, your Erlong Shen, to fall behind early.
Not at all, and already after we'd been talking about how he could maybe be the one setting things up, it's going to feel a little awkward for him trying to get back into this. I think a good call from Radiance to get that aggression going. You force down the Argus as well from Dardes, so he doesn't have that safety at this level 5 marker, I guess now level 7, that we expect around the ultimate, which opens up a window for adapting to maybe try and get more aggressive. Big Man takes way too much poke. I don't know if they're going to be able to utilize this window as much as they want.
Even though they potentially might have liked to, instead they'll have to retreat. And look at this from SSG. A nice little red buff invade should be in the cards in a world where they know Teams has to back, even committing the ultimate here. And I like this. Probably not a whole lot of situations where they're going to really need that ultimate for its back up. Use it to confirm that red buff, make it safer for them, and able to find a little bit of a fight back here in the middle lane. They might have lost their jungler, but Dardes in a good spot now.
I mean, just keeping himself comfortable. And again, I think mid lane, this is one of those weird games where Cheerio, he's going to hit a certain point no matter what. I think that's something that we can say about Vote as well. No matter what, the length of this game is going to get him to a late game state where he is comfortable, and that's all you can ask for out of them. But Dardes, it almost feels like he's going to be the one that can siphon the energy for SSG in this game to make the big difference for them. Early on, it's not going to be the make or break play, but I think later on, he's going to be the one that can make those differences.
And Vote, we just saw a problem for Vote that's going to continue the rest of this game. He does not have a particularly great answer to his Fields of Love. He can go up with his own ultimate if he feels as though he's really in that much danger, but if it's a gank, then the enemy jungler and adapting will be right there waiting for him when he lands. This Fields of Love should present some pretty good opportunities for Cyclone Spin and company in that left side.
And canceling out that roll before it can happen as well. I think that's why Cyclone Spin is in a little bit of trouble here. They want to pressure him out because Vote, if you see a Nemesis poker head over here, you go up into your ult, cool. You come down and roll, she has 2 dashes, dude. You're not going to get away from that. And we're best case scenario, you come back down and there is still a cripple field. It's just so much, I think, that can lock you down and chase you down. So Vote is going to maybe rely pretty heavily on Raffer, maybe Cheerio, maybe Dardes, whoever happens to rotate on keeping him alive, because otherwise he's not going to have a very pretty game for him. It might not be eventful. They might just leave the left lane alone as well.
Yeah, we saw that in Game 1 where things were played slowly. Surprised we got an earlier first blood here when it wasn't maybe quite as conducive as we would have thought to the solo lane ganking as it was back in Game 1. But I wonder if what we're really seeing here, Gore, isn't that Radiance have a more mid-game or early-game focused comp, but what if Space Station are just a little bit less safe here this time than they were last time? I mean, it was much harder trying to get over there and gank that Cthulhu or something like that than it is here this time, punishing Cheerio in this Erlong, and I think Radiance have recognized that they've got some opportunities.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they're trying to use that and abuse it in any way they can. But the problem I'm having, Finch, is where all of this gold is going right now. I mean, SSG have been aggressive, not in kills, but at least in terms of farm and stealing buffs away, getting into the jungle, that it's getting close to 1,000 gold. You know, it's sitting around 800. And things like that, it's small. 1,000 gold 20 minutes from now means literally nothing. But right now, that's where you can start to build this lead. That's the difference between an extra ward for your team that maybe it just gives you the vision you need to catch Radiance out, catch them with their pants down, and find a good fight for your team. If you can do something like that, I think for SSG, you can, nourish this little lead into a great blooming garden of a win. But you just have to get there, which is so difficult to do because Radiance isn't going to give you an inch to work with.
No, it's a good point, especially considering that first blood bounty, Cyclone Spin, use the Fields of Love, completely halt the gank in its tracks, hold on to his relics, but not going to be able to hold on to the purple buff. Aurora not enough to help him defend, and that is the buff invaded. And that might be where this lead is coming from, despite the first blood, is these buff invades, as the Gold Fury already down to half, the River's Rebuke should cut off any response, no one is even on the way, and SSG take a Gold Fury for free, while Radiants are napping. I guess look at invade over there near Solo.
Now, I love the call from SSG, but one thing I think I'm interested to see here is Aurora, his dash, interacting with Raffer's walls. He's going to be able to get in there, and I think that can make a big difference for some of these plays where River's Rebuke is the one main reason we wouldn't see aggression otherwise. And they want to get in there. There's Dharmic Pillars. They mentioned on the desk how much this can hurt in the mid lane.
Dardes, though, uses the beads, able to narrowly make it out of there, but Benji has the ultimate. Only he can descend into madness, and that's enough to push SSG away for now. But Nico wants to come back in, goes into the Oct form. He does not have the ultimate, but gets the kill onto Benji either way. It costs him his life, but it ends up being a one-for-one trade. And Gore, I don't know how you feel about that. Nika kind of insisting that Benji die there.
Yeah, I don't think he needed to go in and trade his life out for that kill. I don't think it necessarily hurts them either, but doesn't help them, right? And so in the terms of plus-minus, it means nothing. They still got the Gold Fury, though, which I think is all that matters if you're a Space Station fan right now. You get that gold, you're now, again, more collectively in a lead, and you're slowing down Radiance, or at least stopping them in times where they should be able to get a kill. I mean, that should have been Dardes' death, and I think the way that SSG play throughout all of that keeps them hopeful throughout it. Now it's just making that consistent, making sure that they never find themselves in an awkward position, because I can bet adapting big man, especially Cyclone Spin, as they start rotating into these fights, they're just going to start hitting harder, the damage is going to be more consistent, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to just use your beads to get away.
Another objective for SSG, but Benji is there to clean up. Cheerio got too low, tanking up the Pyromancer. Dardes does get caught by the root. Remember, Dardes has no beads, but Cyclone Spin in trouble in the left lane, uses the hearts to make it back out of there safely, and now is getting a little bit of backup from Aurora, but that's the Pyromancer in exchange for Cheerio. Not 100% sure if that's worth. I mean, you want Cheerio up and farming.
It all depends on how this goes. You've got Big Man coming through. Roar's trying to do his best to set this up. That Tier 1 tower, I mean, yeah, it's only 12 minutes in. It's still going to hurt. So the most they can do is strip away some buffs. Maybe equalize from what SSG had been stripping away from them earlier, but it's not going to help in terms of the two objectives that you've lost. This Dharmic Pillars might be helpful to find a kill, but they have to work on it fast.
Big ultimate from adapting, sets up for Tings to cut down Dardes, even without the remove obstacles connecting. They're able to find that kill. So it's 4-1 in kills favoring Radiance, but it's a 1,000 gold lead for SSG. And Gore, I've got to think that all comes down to the objective control.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get a Gold Fury uncontested, you get a Pyromancer pretty much uncontested. You're losing the fights, you're losing the kills, but who cares? I think in the end of the day, you're happy with what you're walking away with. You're getting advantages where they're needed. And this is something I've always stood by. I think early game kills, if you can continue mounting them, if this 4-1 turns into an 8-1, turns into a 12-1, keeps going up like that, then yeah, all of these early game kills are going to make a difference. But if this 4-1 turns into a 4-5 and SSG pick up 4 kills at any given time, then all these early game kills for Radiance mean virtually nothing. So I think what we're seeing is SSG win the pressure where you need it early on, which is in the Furies, in your Pyromancers, where we didn't really get to see it from them at all last game. It was all Radiance when it came down to objectives. Right. And soon enough, that'll start translating into Fire Giants, this Oni Fury that's about to spawn in about a minute. Those are going to be very, very big for either team if they can get it. It either gets Radiance back in it, or it gives SSG the pressure they need to turn this lead into something more.
Still, no Fury up just yet, despite the grouping. That is the ultimate from Cyclone Spin being used to keep himself alive. Radiance have the numbers, at least running this little skirmish as Cheerio continues looking for a fight. There is the ultimate coming out from him. He wants this fight to happen, but not going to be able to lock down anyone. Even the River's Rebuke used, Spacestation must have saw a little bit more than what ended up happening, because they dropped a couple of ultimates to try and make it work.
Dharmic Pillar still available for Aurora. Pretty big grouping from SSG. That stun not connecting. If they had a little bit more CC or maybe just a little bit more confidence, I wouldn't be upset getting to see them get aggressive here. But I think Radiance maybe playing the smart play. They're not looking for the fight right now. They're not trying to burn these fights. Dharmic Pillars is great at objective shred.
And Dardez is the one championing this dive. They want to find Adapting, who loops back underneath the Tier 1 tower. Big Man Ting's able to help keep him alive, and somehow Adapting makes it out, but Aurora not going to be as lucky. Vote lands the shot, a sprint used to close the gap. And with that space, SSG could seal red and maybe even come back to Oni.
Yeah, that's the big one that's on the board right now. No Fields of Love, Aurora still down for 15 seconds, so no Dharmic Pillars to try and make a play. Unless Big Man, Adapting maybe, now that he's respawned, can run in and make some plays that we saw Sanguine make, this should be an easy Fury.
That's 2 uncontested Furies now for Space Station. Cyclone Spin gets aggressive, but Raffer just drops the ultimate. That cuts off the escape, and he makes it out of there easily without any extra aggression. And this is where Radiance are starting to run into some trouble now, Gore. Sure, they've got the kill lead, but all of the objectives, all of the map controls belong to SSG.
And this is what one kill can get you. You killed Aurora and all of that if you're Space Station, and it opened up a Fury. It's given you this massive gold lead. Again, now 3,000 that they're starting to hold up to. And that's just these small plays. These small little differences are making that happen for SSG. And I honestly thought they were being, a little kind of, just throwing out their ults like it meant nothing to them, right? Raffer being willing to try and lock something down. Cheerio, we saw it a little earlier where it's just like maybe they saw something more than we did, but nothing came out of them. But it didn't matter because at the end of the day, you got rid of the Dharmic Pillars. You made Adapting fall back as essentially 2 kills, even though only one of them existed as such. And so there was no real pressure, no anything Radiance could do to try and contest it. They don't necessarily have the best objective steal on their side either. A lot of good burn, but unless they're the ones controlling the pace, they're never going to find that really helpful.
And this lead's becoming very real for SSG. A second relic online for Raffer, the Blink and the Sprint, whereas Aurora, only level 10, is stuck working just with the upgraded shell. There's a 2-level lead for Vote over Cyclone Spin, probably because of, you can see it right here, these repeated purple buff invades. Now Aurora, taking a lot of damage, is able to fall back despite Argus whacking away at him, but SSG have an experienced lead, they have a map lead as well. They have bounced back nicely from that somewhat passive game 1.
And it's a really good cushion right now because, yeah, again, Radiance have the 4 kills and technically that kill advantage, but there's not much they can do, especially when Aurora just falls down like this, taken out of the game just by Nika.
Very nearly getting the kill, but as you mentioned, he certainly has to leave, walking back to base, not even backing, and that means the Tier 1 tower is open. And that's what Space Station have done. They only have 2 kills, but they've gotten a lot more effective kills that have not been tracked, where people have to take the TKO. They have to go back to base. The map is opened up, as Cyclone Spin narrowly avoids Cheerio, who uses the Blink to catch up. But that's why some of these Tier 1 towers are down, and the lead has been developing. It's because Radiance keep getting forced out.
It's the question of cohesion, right? When you look at SSG, I can see the carries. You know, it screams out to me who's going to be doing damage. Dardes is going to set it up. Cherio or Vote is going to be able to seal the deal. Nika and Raffer play setup. But when I look at Radiance, I'm trying to figure out where they're trying to put the carry potential. It is obviously going to be onto Cyclone Spin, I think, as they transition late onto adapting. But they haven't really showcased that just yet. A lot of their team synergy, team fight, is going to be great, but the guy that's, you know, coming forward and getting the double kills, your triple kills, making the plays, doesn't stand out as much.
Radiance are at least able to get the Pyromancer. That's something, but Benji's now been locked down, polymorphed as well, and still hasn't been able to get the ultimate off. He barely does at the tail end. Aurora with the Dharmic Pillars does create some space as Nika keeps up the chase, even gets the kill with the Cudgel, and Benji goes down. And now Radiance trying to force the fight, trying to see if they can get anything else back, but SSG still healthy, SSG still strong, and they're looking to punish adapting. Cherio gets the second kill of this engagement. Field of Love does find some nice value. Dardes is low, but they don't have enough members to follow up. The damage isn't there, and Cyclone Spin is now in trouble. Cherio sticks to him, and Cherio finds another, a 3-for-0 for SSG.
And they look to just continue it. I mean, Aurora is supposedly going to walk away, but good Riptides keep him in the fight, and the entire time, Vote's not even here. That's a 4v5 that they successfully win, and Vote's going to get a Phoenix on top of all of that, which is just ludicrous to me that Radiance ended up seeing it happen. One more shot, he's maybe in danger because Tings is here, but that's just beautifully played by SSG, and now, with all of those kills, with that Phoenix, with that objective, they've gotten to the point where Radiance feel like they're floundering here.
They have been in this game. The reason it feels that way is because it's true, and that's just Yamoja diff we saw in that last fight, able to use that River's Rebuke to perfectly isolate Benji, and then the CC chain was great too, the polymorph, the taunt, which prevented it from getting the ultimate off in time and let them stack up that damage before the mitigation came through, and then they were coming in one by one from Radiance, and SSG were perfectly able to capitalize.
Now it's that awkward decision of how do you get back into this? I feel like Aurora, again, is maybe the one to set it up. Benji, unfortunately, getting locked down there early in that fight kind of showcased why Cthulhu, even though he does a lot of damage, even though he can control the pace of a game, isn't really the end-all be-all right now, and I think you need Aurora to get aggressive, but this is a good lockdown.
It is. That's not the aggression we were looking for. Cherio able to get another kill, 4-2-1 on the Erlong Shen. This Gold Fury, likely the last one we'll see of the game, will further extend this lead for SSG closer to 10k, and there's still towers for them to go collect to extend this lead out even further. They haven't even gotten a Fire Giant yet, a 10k nearly gold lead, 13,000 experience, and this is starting to get out of reach very quickly for Radiance.
And a lot of it right now is, well, the Cherio show, right? He's 4-2-1. He's the one picking up and cleaning up these kills. But it's Raffer, it's these walls, it's this ult that's knocking everyone up. When it's Argus, there's nothing you can do to control it.
Very low as adapting. He had to leave this fight much earlier already. Radiance are still sticking nearby, but I don't know how much right they have to do so. They have to fight this from the tertiary, from the edges of this fight. As Vote rolls in, starting to feel himself a bit. He ends up taking quite a bit of damage for it, has to use the beads, so maybe getting a little bit ahead of himself. As Radiance show, they still have the counter damage to put out.
But look how many ults just got burned. I mean, that's 4 ults, well, technically 3. Let's ignore Big Man Tings' diamond there, that are down when it comes down to it. 2 of them huge for team ults, 1 of them very large in terms of adapting, finding pick potential. Meanwhile, River's Rebuke was still available. Well, it's not going to have the same lockdown right now. That's the threat Radiance are running, is every ult they use, if it doesn't find something that turns this game back in their favor, I mean, it's 10k now, maybe a little less as it deviates, but as these towers start to fall, we're going to see even more gold in the pockets of Space Station, and it feels like they're entering that late game state much faster than they did last game.
Fire Giant now in the cart for SSG, and Radiance are so scattered, so spread out, I don't even know if they could defend. Adapting the closest, he blinks in, but he's too early. He's just bait at this point. Good shielding and a good silence from Aurora allows Adapting to make it out. SSG have dropped the FG for now. They're looking for the fight instead. Dardes steps forward, but Benji, able to reposition, gets pulled back in by the Riptide and has to descend into madness now. Surging forward, pumping out the damage, knocking up members of SSG, but Benji doesn't have the backup.
Oh! Look at that Dharmic Pillars, though. It locks 3 people away, but you can't do anything with it. I mean, Benji's almost dead. Yeah, Nika maybe bites off more than he can chew, but Radiance had to turn tail and run, again, using a lot of ults. I don't know if they can contest a Fire Giant here.
It's going to be tricky for them if they want to. Only 4 members of SSG up, but Cyclone Spin has his ultimate. That's huge for the team fight. Adapting has his as well. I think Radiance can do enough. They've pushed SSG out and managed to defend. And remember, they were down, like, what, 10k going into that fight, Gore. Any kind of stall is huge for Radiant at this point.
Oh, yeah. And you can see the charts. It's not a lot, but just getting a kill onto the solo laner, winning a small skirmish like that, brings things back in their favor. I mean, you know, you're looking at Adapting. He's level 16 right now. Level 13, even worse for Aurora there. I don't want to say that they're feeling useless, but they're definitely not able to get into the fight the way they want to. Objectives like a Pyromancer, it's small, but it's something they can grab. A kill on Devote would be huge here, and he doesn't have a lot of backup. They're just going to go ahead and take the Pyro and run.
He didn't have beads either. He's just about to get those back in 15 seconds after a similar roll forward cost him last time. But SSG, despite the loss, are right back in the same spot, starting up the Fire Giant, and with it down to have, Argus lands onto Aurora and Cyclone to cut them off. River's Rebuke does great work to keep the fight separated. The Fire Giant now low, as Space Station should be able to secure this one easily. Aurora drops the Dharmic Pillar, Space Station secure the objective, and now they're in trouble. Vote pumps the damage into Aurora. He falls first. Adapting is on the long flank in the back, but won't get there in time to save Cyclone Spin as Vote gets the double dart as pops Big Man Tinks, and Adapting ends up doing next to nothing. Benji goes up into his ultimate, trying to control the fight and lock down Cheerio, but they don't have the damage or the backup. Cheerio gets Benji, Vote gets Adapting. The deicide means that SSG control game 2.
I mean, we're 24 minutes in, but with the full group 10 seconds before anyone's back, and even then, it's Aurora trying to defend against all 5, with this Fire Giant, with everything. Space Station just had a lead early. They controlled everything they needed to. They're able to just take every fight they wanted. It just feels like the draft got out of hand here. I mean, obviously, Raffer's looking great. Vote feels great. That Phoenix he got on left earlier really paid off dividends, and now SSG just dominate.
They are not a way that Aurora can defend this on his own. I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough for the end call, but it absolutely was. Radiance in 40-plus minutes get the Game 1 win, but SSG, much more convincingly here in Game 2, are able to take care of Radiance. And where does this leave us now, Gore, with a 1-1 in a Game 3 to decide it all?
For me, personally, it leaves me a little confused because it just felt like two different teams on the side of Radiance that played in Game 1 and Game 2 there. And the fact that SSG is able to showcase this, again, right now, it's time for the undefeated teams to get defeated, so this is great for them and great maybe for the standings and for all these other teams that are trying to play catch-up in terms of the standings. But at the end of the day, I'm just curious as to what Radiance was trying to do. I mean, it feels again like the draft got a little bit away from them. I think they didn't necessarily have one clear carry, and they lost a lot of farm early on to what SSG were doing. And so as it slowly started to progress there, SSG turned that one little small lead they had early into so much in terms of objective control and kill control, and there was nothing Radiance could do to retaliate.
Yeah, I think Yamoja's too strong to be letting through right now, Gore. That's a big part of it for me. Those ultimates were cutting up the fights. The Riptides were huge as well. But also, Space Station just came in with a plan. They were able to get off the ground early with Cheerio. They had all this pressure in the long lane with Vote up against Cyclone Spin as well. And really, it was tough for Radiance to ever fight back into it.
Yeah, there was, again, not a lot of room for error in any game like this, but you could see whenever it was just one little mistake or one power curve that didn't work well for them, it just seemed to fall apart there, and I think so much seems to go wrong early on for Radiance. You know, you never get to see Cyclone Spin step off, you never get to see Adapting really come to fruition, and he lost a level lead so early that Cheerio was able to dominate in the jungle.
It was a strong performance from Cheerio, 5-2-3, 4-0-2 for Vote, as well as they had an excellent game. And this was some struggles here for. We talked about it a little bit here already, right? They need to make sure when they come into this next game that they're coming in with a little bit more of a cohesive strategy for it. I think that making sure the emoji's not on SSG is one thing, but Aurora is getting pushed down further and further down the god pools, and seems like he's running out of options. But that's going to do it for us here as the casters. We'll get it back down to the desk to let them break it down from here.
Always appreciated there, fellas. Quick look at the post-game stats here. Brought to you by Dave, don't call me David, Dolson, Olson, no, I almost said Caleb, Miff, Mifflin Lin with me to break down game number 2 that we got here. That one's tough. Shorter but tough. In this one, Vote, I think, really turns it around there towards the end. Quiet early, did a good bit of damage, but, impactful kills. Real concrete impact on those fights as the game went on. Cheerio, though, Mifflin, this jungle Erlang Shen, attack speed based. It worked here in game 2.
Look, as much as I want to gas up a jungler with my jungler heart, I gotta say it really does come down a bit to the duo diff. Aurora was kind of stuck at level 13 for about 5 or 6 minutes, largely unimpactful. I mean, even at the tail end of that game on that last Fire Giant dance, we saw Vote auto-attack Aurora 3 times for 50% of his health bar, and that's not crit. My man wasn't building crit, he just had the damage there, and when your Ganesh is that far behind, I don't care what you're doing. If it's not Dharmic Pillars, it's not going to amount to much. And shouts to Finch, he called it earlier this week on the pre-SPL show. He said, we're going to see Hera. And he was absolutely right. I just didn't think it was going to come into this much of play. The damage potential, the peel potential, it was so hard to shut him down. Every single time we saw him get in any danger, Argus comes down, you got your bubble buddy, team up a little bit, hold hands, and solo anyone who stands in front of you. Just seems like SSG had a better handle on this game.
That's John Finch to you, Mifflin. Make sure to get that one right there the next time. We're headed to a game number 3 here between Radiance and SSG. Radiance, remember, is trying to stay undefeated. SSG trying to unseat them. That'll run rampant in the standings if SSG are able to take this one. Picks and ban strategy may change, I think, from what we've seen early on here. Remember, the support bans were heavy for when Radiance was in this first pick slot. SSG opted to ban out Aurora a good bit, left some interesting picks open really there on either side. Continued Aphrodite bans, though, throughout this set, Mifflin. Obviously, Dardez incredible on that pick. Is Aphrodite strong enough, in your mind, to warrant these continued first bans?
Aphrodite in general, definitely not. Dardez's Aphrodite, don't let it through. This guy is bringing pressure into mid. He's able to keep his teammates alive, and I think a lot of it's due to the fact that he synergizes so incredibly well with Cheerio. Cheerio's God pool, just every single pick he takes meshes well with Aphrodite. Cheerio wants to bring Raven, Erlang Shen, Kabrakan, these types of gods, these melee assassin-centric one-shot you in your face. Well, it's going to be much harder to deal with it if you're linked up to Aphro, Undying Love with the CC immunity and damage immunity, the healing, back off as well. I think that is the strength, or at least one of them for SSG, is that Dardez has these 2 incredibly unconventional picks inside of Hera and Aphrodite, and Radiance already are recognizing the strength of it and aren't going to let it through.
Look at this pivot here from SSG as well. Remember, it was Persephone and then Yamoja and Hercules in game number 1, realizing that the Freya was just a little bit too much to deal with. SSG is going to change that Hercules ban to a Freya ban now. That does leave open the Hercules, but it's worth mentioning that Radiance forewent their Hercules in game 2 throughout the picks and bans. Ended up being banned second wave by SSG. Cthulhu, though, first pick overall, so won't see the Hercules just yet here for Aurora. Continued pressure, though, on these Hercules, though, Mifflin. That's what we've seen throughout this set, but I think it speaks volumes that these teams, they still realize, even if it hasn't had the best win rate in this set so far, the potential, the ceiling of this Cthulhu is enough to draft it first.
And I would never say that Cthulhu's even been a reason that these guys are losing.
No,
he's always inside the team fight, dropping the heals, dropping the knockups, huge amounts of damage. He's been incredibly hard to kill despite Nemesis being in the game, despite having these counter picks to deal with him. He's still getting this insane value off. It is interesting to see that SSG are going to elect to go ahead and take their comfort picks top of the match instead of taking away something like the Hercules from Aurora or even the Cupid for Vote. Instead, they're going to take the Rama and the Hera. Both incredibly strong picks in their own right, maybe elevated a bit by the players, almost called them gods. They might just be them playing them. I think it's very strong from SSG and a bit of a vote of confidence from them to say, all right, well, we could have taken these meta picks or even target away some picks from Radiance, but instead we're going to take what we're good at and play well on it.
They carry enough weight to warrant the first and second pick. Now Hercules carries enough weight, absolutely, for Aurora to warrant that one being picked here before the second wave of bans. So I wondered where this pick would fall. It's right around a 70% ban rate against Radiance. Not surprising at all. So now Aurora, a big opportunity for him to show everyone why, and maybe SSG more specifically, why Hercules continues to be banned out against this guy. Erlong Shen once more was in the jungle there in game number 2. Did you like the performance enough from SSG to go back to it here for game 3?
Absolutely, 100%. He completely outmaneuvered and outplayed Adapting. Adapt King, let's put some
Softball
respect
question.
on his name. Yeah, I mean, my dude was, what, 5'2" and 7 or something like that? Yeah, Dave, come at me with a harder question next time. But we can talk about Radiance's duo
sure?
lane a little bit. This Hercules and Cupid together, that's potentially one of the gnarliest kill lanes available. You get hit by the Earthbreaker into a Driving Strike, into a Heart Bomb. If you're not dead yet, Fields of Love come through afterward, maybe a Boulder Toss. There's so much pressure coming out of this duo that it's going to be very interesting to see what type of support SSG are going to elect to bring. I'm thinking maybe something along the lines of a Khepri or anything that's going to just stop this aggression from Radiance, because you know the second level 6, level 7 rolls around, Aurora's going to rotate out a duo, never to return, leave Cyclone Spin on an island, and play the secondary jungler.
Wasn't Ardio the other pick that we were
get in there
contesting
and
we
mix it
figured
up.
you'd see this week? Danae God, not Ardio just yet. Achilles there, locked in. So that would lend you to believe solo lane. That was the dynamic we saw for SSG there in game number 2. So pending final pick there. Maybe we've seen Achilles support once or twice. I don't know if we're going to go down that road. Agni locked in for BMT here. Haven't seen him in phase 2 just yet, Mifflin. How strong is this mid pick?
It's pretty strong. As far as ranged engage and the ability to deal with Hera, it's there. When you're laning against Hera, you want to play a god that can poke from a range and set up your jungler for some easy ganks, because if Hera's allowed to sit at full health from max range the entire time, she's always going to have Argus for peel, that self-shield for appeal. But if Agni's able to drop Rainfire a couple times, it should take out about 50% of her health. If you do the stun combo, set up for a Hunbots, rotates in with Fear No Evil, that's fantastic for them. Ardio being hovered, Dave, you might have just spoken into existence.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you just get the vibes from the universe and it seems to work out. So SSG lock in all 5 here for game number 3. Ram, Hera, Erlong Shen, Achilles, Ardio. A fun draft to follow along with game number 3. Let's break this tie.
Alright, I don't buy it. We haven't seen Hindu Man all day, and suddenly Ardio getting locked in after I roast him. No, no, no. Gotta wake up earlier in the morning to trick me than that, Hindu, wherever you're at. But this should be an excellent match here, Gore. This last one with the Umoja band away, Aurora has somehow maneuvered his way to getting this Hercules. This could be very scary all of a sudden for Space Station.
And not only did he get it, but it wasn't even the first pick that they had to strip it away. They waited a little bit. They were comfortable grabbing up this Hercules. And honestly, Finch, I want to say that it's going to change the pace of this. Look, I mean, look at it. Big Man Tings has long engage for the team. Long-range stuns that are going to be helpful. Cyclone Spin, running it back, didn't necessarily have an impact, didn't really have a bad game either on this Cupid. So I think it's what surrounds him that's going to make the difference. They set it on the desk, but Cthulhu is never the issue. I think adapting on something he can carry on and Aurora on something that he can either set up someone else to carry on, or if he needs to, he'll do it himself. And this Hercules, this Hunbats, I think it makes the biggest difference for Radiance here and will make them feel just a little bit better.
Should be able to put them into a good spot. I mean, where are you going to use your beads if you're Space Station in this game, right? Are you going to use it for the Fear No Evil from adapting? Are you going to use it for the Agni stun? Are you going to use it for the Fields of Love? Or when you get push-pulled by Aurora? I mean, there's a lot of control, I think, that's going to put pressure on the beat here for Space Station Gaming. As Rapper almost ends up falling for first blood. Very, very close there between Aurora and Cyclone.
And what I love is, it was actually also kind of mentioned on the desk, you don't typically get to see Achilles over here in support, but it's something that maybe can rival this Hercules, at least in terms of aggression. Unfortunately, it does still have that problem where it's just a little bit squishier, and now Adapting's over here to capitalize on it.
Blink in, the stun from the Heart Bomb sets it up, and uses the Sacred Monkey to make it over there. Not quite enough to get the kill to vote, but I think Radiance will settle for first blood, shutting down Raffer on this Achilles.
Getting themselves that bounty and, you know, forcing Cyclone Spin, or sorry, Vote here to play in an awkward position. No beads available for him, so if he gets caught out once, this Hercules is going to be able to capitalize on it. Now, Nika, you know, this RDO, she's solid, but maybe not as solid as a Cthulhu. I'm thinking that this is, again, it just feels like a better draft for Radiance. It plays much more into their strengths, and it's going to change things around. But you got to keep your eyes on Cherio, and you got to keep your eyes on Dardes, because those two were the ones that really started picking up the pace for SSG last time. And I expect that Cherio, at the minimum, is going to make sure his impact is felt. Dardes absolutely should as well.
And certainly should be. Cherio and Dardes, I think, that 3v3, and I know we normally mean support mid-jungle, but I think it is mid-jungle solo for SSG that is the heart and soul of this team. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised by the placement of the Achilles and the Ardio. I understand that you get some value out of surprising Radiance, right? They would likely have expected Ardio support here, at least I would think. The cripple field to be so strong into this Hercules to deny the push-pull, and the ranged root gives you so much pressure over there in the long lane. How do you feel about taking the Achilles support instead of the Ardio?
Well, it definitely seems to maybe make some trouble over here for the solo laner. I think the Ardio... Nika is more than likely going to be able to transition, but I don't necessarily see him, carrying on this. You give him Achilles, and he's going to be able to, again, make a lot of kills, make a lot of big plays, stuns, executes, what have you. Ardio, it's going to be a bunch of setup, and I think giving Cherio, Dardes, Vote late game the platform that they need to stand on is definitely something we've seen him do countless times, but usually it's with big team fight setup. I'm thinking the Amaterasu ults we got to see last week that were just insane from SSG. I just don't know if he has that same potential right now on the Ardio. Of course, I'm more than happy for him to prove me wrong on that one, because I love seeing Nika when he finds that stride. But it feels a little, just missing for me. I feel like Raffer as well, is much more supporty than he is aggressive over here. And so having this Achilles, especially into Aurora's Hercules, it's not like you're going to be able to find a lot of control against this anyway. So I don't know if it was, the best swap you could make.
Well, maybe this quick dash that we just saw from Raffer is part of the appeal, because it does give him that sort of mobility to get out of the way of the blink push in a way that I don't know that Ardio could. Her dash a little bit slower and much more punishing when he gets interrupted. As adapting, waiting, biding his time, they want Nika, who they know doesn't have the ultimate with the CC immunity, but it's not enough for the lockdown. Nika narrowly able to make it out of there, but keep this in the back of your mind. This magical solo with the physical jungler should make life pretty hard for Nika.
It's just two things. Adapting, unfortunately, that Fear No Evil is just pushing Nika a little closer to the tower instead of away, so maybe there was a position where it could have been locked down. But also, Nika just burned teleport, you burn down his health bar, he's got to walk back to lane the long way. So that gives a lot of control over to Benji to just farm up, get this totem of Ku that he's going to be able to push for, help the team all across the map. And I think that's going to start to, again, give them that leverage they need early on. Maybe you don't get the kill, but I don't think you need it. You still walk away victorious after that.
Should be feeling good. Plus, they've managed to defend this blue buff. We've seen SSG look like they want to invade this blue buff a couple of times, and Adapting has been there to make sure they're defending it. So that is them doing their job on the solo lane, certainly at this point. You also saw, as the Fields of Love comes down, Raffer goes back into it with a fatal strike. I like that awareness from him to coming back towards the jungle. He might have gotten killed there. Has the fatal strike through it.
And I love the way that Radiance are playing right now. Last time, it just didn't suit them. Last game, they were playing response. Every time it was Spacestation that would kind of push forward into them, and then they'd be able to walk away with it. This time, they're controlling their own pace. They're the ones choosing their fights as opposed to letting it be chosen for them. And, well, for right now, it's meaning a lot.
Benji looking for the solo kill up against Nika with this Descend into Madness ultimate. Couldn't get the knockup, but who needs it? Benji gets the kill as Nika struggling a little bit in this direct matchup. And this is where I was wondering, I'm not saying that Achilles lives through there, but I'm just wondering if this Ardio gives him enough pressure to fight back into this Cthulhu.
And what is going to bring for them late game? That's really where I'm confused. Right now, Aurora takes a lot of damage, but Adapting's still around. Fear No Evil just came up. He might be able to find a kill.
And placed much better that time, pulls Raffer back towards the team. Not quite, though, able to get that kill, and Tings was a little bit out of range to follow up. But Benji, you're right there, Gore. He's looping around the back. There's two low HP targets. If he can make his way in, first he drops the Mire for the slow and gets the kill. Benji, 2-0-0 on this Cthulhu solo.
and much more worthwhile. Send Raffer back to base. Just keep him out of the fight. Kill Cherio. Get him shut down, take away his farm for adapting, and get yourself set up. I don't think Benji saw it happening that way, but it definitely is more beneficial for them to have it go through the ringer like that. Now, Cherio already off to a little bit of a slower start than adapting. You can feel the impact of these Fear No Evils. I will admit you feel the long cooldown that adapting's having to deal with now, but it doesn't seem to be slowing him down at all. And as he gets these items online, just one more really, I think we're going to start seeing him have much more kill potential, and that threshold where Raffer got out there, it's not going to exist as easily anymore.
They should have an easier time, at least in the future, trying to lock Raffer down, because as you said, they had everything there executed basically perfectly. Well-placed ultimate or totem from adapting, and he had the damage follow-up. Also, if Tings is just a little bit closer, I think they get that kill much easier as well, and then Cthulhu can rotate over and still get the Cheerio in that same situation. But this has got to be feeling good for Radiance. With the slower-paced Game 1 and then SSG in control of Game 2, this is the first time we've really seen Radiance be this proactive, this in control throughout the early game, and they've got the kind of comp that can capitalize on that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just excited more than anything to see a Roar. I feel like so far what we've gotten is a little bit of like a warm-up period where you've been on these different supports. You got to get back into that mentality for this Hercules. But I think it's really just SSG playing around it well. They know what to expect. But I still just set the bar high, at least in my mind, for what the setup is going to be. But between that, between adapting, the engage tools that Big Man Tings is bringing, I mean, Agni does some decent damage. It's not necessarily anything that you see people writing home about. That's why he's not picked all the time. But the control he brings is solid.
There's action happening in the middle lane. This could be trouble for Radiance, but avoiding the execute somehow is adapting, always able to make the play and somehow live. And as you said, able to make it away from Cheerio as well. And now perhaps Benji can keep the aggression going in favor of Radiance this time. Big Man Tings drops the damage, able to bring Raffer down low, and it's Benji that collects the kills. How many other people make it out of that alive besides adapting?
And I'm confused maybe a little bit as to why he was in there. He had no mana going into that. But the fact that he's able to walk away alive on top of all of that is insane. And I think you said it perfectly. How many times do you get to walk away from that? I think 99% of the time you're walking away dead, which I guess means you're not walking away. And the 1% of the time you're adapting, and you're perfectly fine. But now they've got this 4-0 lead. Make that 5-0 lead as they collapse in onto Dardes. This is the kind of early game kills I was talking about last time.
Vote, though, looking for snipes. He hits him. I don't even know if he had vision on adapting, but the King ain't the only one playing well today, as Vote's able to hit the shots from the long lane. Space Station may have struggled a little bit here in the early game, but they're not just going to roll over.
But it comes back to the lead right now. Cool, you get rid of adapting. Honestly, I maybe see it as a bonus to him. He's just going to wait for the cooldown on his ult to come through. He gets a free back to base. Maybe it's not the best way to look at it. But either way, I don't think he's too stressed out about that death. And with the way things are going right now, it really is Radiance dictating the path. As long as they keep this kind of pacing up, 5-1, and that one was just a really solid snipe from Vote. I don't think you're going to get to see those too often, at least not as easily as that one seemed for Vote. So with Benji rotating into these fights, with things evolving the way they have, I mean, 10 minutes in, it feels like Radiance can run away with it, but they have to be very careful with how they engage. Just one misstep too many times from adapting or a roar could put them right back to square one.
This early game has gone about as well for Radiance as it can, but if they want to translate this into, as you said, a runaway lead, then they're going to have to start looking towards some objectives here soon. So far, it's not a criticism. They've been doing everything right up until now, but to transition this into that real mid-game type lead, that's those stepping stones they're going to need. And so that's the question for, how do you like Radiance's fight around this Gold Fury pit? I mean, they've got all the control I feel like you could ask for.
Yeah, and honestly, all of the finalization, I guess, that you need, right? You're looking to kill off a Harpy. You throw out Fields of Love. Granted, that's not there. The only thing that can steal it away on SSG is the snipes, and now that you know that's gone, you could maybe look to pressure it out. You've got Boulder. You've got Fear No Evil. You've got the Agni Bombs. You've got everything in your arsenal to control the pace of a team fight.
Yeah, Nika's just in the wrong part of town. A 0% chance he makes it out of this one. Adapting is the one that gets the kill credit. Good answer back, though. SSG continue their pressure in the long lane, and Aurora steps too far forward. And SSG might even look for the Gold Fury. This could be huge here, Gormizer, to answer back all this early pressure. They could lose it all right with this one objective, and they're going to. No one is here to respond. SSG get the pick on Aurora and bring the game much closer back to even.
And Aurora had Boulder. I mean, he could have been, if he was alive, could have been in there, could have stolen it away. Honestly, if he was alive, maybe SSG don't feel confident, but no Fields of Love. They know Adapting's over on the right side of the map. There's nothing Radiance can do there that's in the playbook that walks away with their lives and a Gold Fury. Maybe Cyclone Spin can make the 1 in a million hero play where he dives in, loses his life, but steals the Fury away, but at that point, it's almost wondering if it's worth it for them. Now that's a way to keep SSG alive. Again, it just stops it from being runaway. Radiant still have the lead, and they're still dictating the pace of the game. But that is a solid way to slow them down and make sure that you're nowhere near out of this.
Yeah, it's huge. It's hard to talk about. I mean, I was just saying that Radiance, for Radiance, that could have been the stepping stone towards getting this lead out of control, and instead, SSG have brought themselves right back into this and have this game much more within the realm of where they can not just manage it and play defensively, but start to get a little bit proactive. Aurora just kind of throwing the boulder, seeing if maybe he can find a blue buff steal, but not much of a chance there. Now, with that Gold Fury down, I don't even know where Radiance go for these next 4 minutes or so to start looking for pressure. It might even just be keep your head down and farm time.
Yeah, there is the Pyromancer that you could maybe dance around, but it's not... It's one of those objectives that can help equalize some things, can help give you a smaller lead, but this early on, it's not making the big difference for you, right? It's something you can strip away from Spacestation to have, which is going to be a big win for them. But like you said, unless it's going to be around these ults and around the kill potential they have, there's not really a whole lot they can do. But right now, they're just waiting for Dardez, Raph, or anybody in this mid lane to make one mistake, and they're gone.
Because that's the only way to efficiently use their time. I mean, the buffs are down, they can't go do gold, so they're just kind of waiting to see if a pick will materialize. Benji even rotating over, as maybe they can pressure out this tier 1 tower. There's the Fear No Evil, but a great response from Raffer with the ultimate, but Cyclone Spin looped around. All 5 of them are here in mid, trying to start a brawl. It ends up meaning that Benji falls, he ulted too late and ends up taking a lot of damage. They can't even get the tier 1 tower. They'll settle for their support for solo, and that can't be worth.
I mean, no, not at all. And they use so many ults as well, and I mean, I don't want to call it what it is, but a spade's a spade. Those were just bad ults for a lot of them. I mean, not well placed. They maybe drive Raffer back into some trouble. Cyclone Spin, though, that follow-up makes it a little bit more worthwhile. I think it was a sloppy engage to begin with, but a good, you know, latter half there for Radiance that made that fight worthwhile. Otherwise, I'm looking at them still a little confused because it feels like they just threw out their arsenal to see what they could do as opposed to going into it with a plan.
Well, maybe they can capitalize after all. Cyclone Spin loses the beads, but it felt like to me was maybe they were a little bit overvaluing the stealth aspect of that, and they wanted to make sure they caught SSG off guard, but it's Cyclone Spin that's caught off guard now. Raffer able to work together with Vote to get a kill, and now Radiance, look at the gold lead. It's basically right back towards tied. I don't know if that little exchange in the middle lane worked out for them at all, Gore. They're right back now, at least in gold, to even with SSG.
And this is why I talk about these early game kills. Radiance were in a position to run away with the rest of this game and just dominate it. But you make just a couple of small misplays. I mean, a Fear No Evil, a Fields of Love that really don't necessarily feel as impactful as you want them to. One of them kind of completely missing because Raffer just ults through it. And then SSG get to turn it around and picking up Cyclone Spin at the end there, setting themselves up for a Fury in another minute. Yeah, these ults are going to come back up and you're still fighting well, but I think Radiance, it feels like it's slipping out of their grip. This is one of those moments. We said it 30 minutes into the first game, but I think 15 minutes into this one, just keep your heads about you, keep everything going at the pace you had it, because you're not losing yet, but you're not winning as hard as you were, and you have to be careful or else SSG will punish these mistakes even harder.
And I want to make sure we're giving credit to SSG because, I mean, the Fatal Strike from Raffer, that's just nuts.
That's
how
so
quickly
well
he's
done.
able to get up into that ultimate. He has to make sure he does it right then because it can't be used if even a tick of the Fear No Evil hits him. So, I mean, and that kind of blows up that whole engagement. If Raffer dies sooner, then maybe they can divert the resources elsewhere, but instead it's a scrambled fight. I liked the idea. That's all because they couldn't do the Gold Fury because Space Station took it, and there wasn't anywhere else for them to go, so they tried to force a fight in mid, but the execution wasn't quite as clean as it needed to be, even with all 5 of them there.
Oh yeah, the mind was in the right place, much like it is right here, but again, you just see how difficult it is to lock down Raffer.
And Cyclone Spin ends up falling. Aurora is in trouble too.
Oh,
Dardes gets the double kill. SSG are suddenly more than in it. They're the ones in control. Nika moving forward. Fear No Evil from adapting feels more like a desperation play, but it does create some space that was desperately needed. But SSG, well timed, are able to head right back towards the Primal. Benji's here. Benji has the ultimate, but it's already low. SSG get it and now have their first lead of the game.
I mean, that's just textbook from them. They recognize what Radiance are looking for, and like you said, it's honestly the only thing Radiance could be doing with their time. There's not a lot of other places they can put this aggression. Fury's about to respawn. They want control of the left side of the map, but SSG not only were prepared for it, they planned on it. It seems like they were waiting for the engage. Raffer, Vote, Dardes just standing there ready to collapse and counter-engage on you, and that's one of the strengths that SSG has had as a team pretty much all year so far, has been their counter-engage. Those first few weeks of Phase 1, they were finding that identity, but now they wait for you to make those mistakes, and they punish you so relentlessly for them that unfortunately even teams like Radiance find themselves in a position like this.
It's so impressive from Space Station, man. I mean, Radiance have stepped a little bit out of pocket, and I mean a little bit. I mean, I think against most teams, the way they've played, this would have worked, but SSG got up a little bit too early in the morning. They were ready for it. They had their Wheaties, whatever it was, but they were comfortable in that mid-tier 1 tower fight. They were comfortable at that Gold Fury fight just now, where they're the ones controlling all the objectives. Now they've got a small lead for themselves. Radiance still have a ton of control with Fear No Evil, with the stuns, with Benji's ultimate, so SSG can't get ahead of themselves, but they are right back in it.
And it's little things like this, Aurora being caught out, right? If you lose your life there as the Hercules, then things, again, they turn negative quickly. And so I think he has to be careful. Adapting has to be with him. I think the engage for this 3v3, having your support mid-jungle, it's so nice for Radiance. I think what they have controls the flow of the fight much better, but they keep getting caught out when they try to go in. It's just stun, CC, lockdown, damage from Dardes, and the knock-up from the ult that's making the big difference for them. And right now, again, not really leading to too much. With that Fury being down, it's kind of where do you throw all this aggression? That Oni Fury's going to be spawning up in about 3 minutes there, Finch, just a little under. And that's one that if you lose to SSG here, that's when not only will they take a lead, but they'll start running away with it. The pressure on the map that will gain could convert into a Fire Giant, a Pyromancer, and a few towers, and that is just scary potential sitting behind SSG right now.
I think that's the right way to look at it. If SSG win a big Gold Fury fight, I don't think they take Gold Fury. I think they go to Fire and take that instead. So this is danger time. And look at SSG, the way they're marching towards the right. They might be looking to start a fight around the Pyro right away. Cherio goes towards Benji in the back of the fight, forces the dash out from him early. Adapting is here if peel is needed, but SSG are swarming towards Benji. There's the taunt. He used the Thorns in response, goes right into the ultimate, and now all of a sudden SSG can't take the fight at all. Maybe they wanted to force this ultimate out before they start a skirmish near Pyro or FG.
Yeah, you trade the Erlang Shin taunt just to get Benji's huge team fight, impactful, game-changing ultimate away from him. It makes re-engagements like this big. But Adapting still in the area and Fear No Evil still exists. Well, not anymore. He just uses it, but he doesn't connect with anyone he needs to.
Maybe got the beads out from Dardes. Big Man Tinks is the first kill to start this off onto Cheerio. Aurora is low and has to leave. But Radiance have done a good job. With Cheerio out of this fight, they've got the 5v4 advantage once Aurora is healthy and back in this engagement. And they could start a battle here around the Fire Giant. Maybe not for the objective, but for the picks.
Well, they'll be able to at least start a Pyromancer here, Finch. And again, the control they have, the secure they have is solid. Now the follow-up, the stuns, I think they could continue chasing it down. And Cyclone Spin thinks so too.
Adapting leaps in as well. He's got Benji there to follow him up, but Vote gets to the sky. They kill Adapting and trade with the snipes from Vote. Cyclone Spin low as well. That was all Vote making it happen with the damage. Now what about Nika? He gets Cyclone Spin. Dardes takes care of Benji. This looked like a good fight for a few moments, but Vote is a machine gun mowing down Aurora, who stood tall in front of him. It's 4 for Space Station. Big Man Tings gets Nika, but that's the deicide as Dardes gets the return. SSG found the huge answer back.
Man, everyone's so low, though. Vote got some lifesteal, but I don't think they feel confident enough to take the Fire Giant. They're going to reset it. Cherio's in the neighborhood, and maybe he's able to tank it for them coming in at full health, so they should still be able to get the buff. And that's just bad news bears for Radiance right there, right? You get baited into a fight, the beads had already been used, but all of your team fights were going down, and maybe they just get too aggressive too quickly throughout all of that. Adapting gets burned like it's nothing, Cyclone Spin disappears, and by the time the carries are gone, Radiance is overcommitted, right? The rest of them are so in the fight that they can't really fall back there, and there's not like any chance SSG would let them. So I think it's well played, well retaliated by Space Station. Vote, as you described him, he's a machine gun. Dardes is doing obnoxious amounts of damage right now, 13,000 for him, matched there with the Agni, just a few thousand behind the Cthulhu. It's a big amount of damage and a lot of kills that swing in their favor. And now with an Oni Fury on the table, nothing Radiance can do about this one. Finch, it's starting to look like an SSG game.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's just been so well played by these SSG guys. A reset there, maybe because they didn't have enough information about the full engage from Radiance, but this is their objective. The Oni Fury belongs to them, and it's so well timed. They'll have those Oni minion waves pushing up now, and look at all the towers for Radiance. 3 tier 2s and a tier 1 for SSG to go collect. This gold lead's going to get a whole lot worse before he gets any better.
This is just so difficult, I think, for everybody involved. You know, Radiance, we were looking at them in Ghost right now as, you know, infallible. They were untouchable. They were on a 5 streak. Nobody could stop them. And
yeah, they were going to be the world's final if you're Hindu.
Yeah. And, you know, he's already gone through and rectified the tweet. You know, it was originally Ghost versus Radiance. Then it's Sanguine versus Radiance. Right now, it's looking like Space Station versus Sanguine if they're going to continue going on that route. The top 4 teams are so close, but this control, you know, even in game 1, pushing it to 40 minutes, but right now 24 minutes is about the time that Space Station won the second game, and them having this amount of control here this time around, 6,000 gold lead, showcases how prepared they were for this matchup and how much control they've had over Radiance the entire time. Maybe it's just Radiance's kryptonite. Maybe every other team isn't going to look like this, but I think SSG are bringing something special in right now in Phase 2.
It looks like they know Cheerio is here. Now they certainly do with this ward. Radiance do a bit of a soft defense on this tier 2 as Nika takes some damage, but they are not going to hard commit for this. Certainly not worth their lives at this point. Cheerio able to successfully strip away the speed buff. That's mental damage for Adapting. Not going to be showing up on the stat sheet, as they should be able to grab, already have gotten the tier 1 with an Oni wave, and now they can come down to the tier 2.
Yeah, this shouldn't be too difficult. I'm actually surprised to see Radiance get as aggressive as they are. Again, huge teamfight ultimates available for him. Adapting with one sick Fear No Evil could just turn the tides in an instant. But I don't think SSG are going to give him the opportunity. They're playing around the blink, they're playing around the ult. They're a little grouped, and I think that's why they're backing here. It's just maybe too dangerous to try and continually engage onto Radiance. So big props to them for getting aggressive and sticking up where they needed to, because they're just trying to burn down one last minute of Fire Giant here. And once that's gone, they'll be more than happy to try and fight on equal footing with Radiance. But Radiance right now, again, one good team fight still gets them the game.
And I don't blame SSG for backing up there, Gore. I mean, they had 1,500 gold in their pocket. Their whole lead was basically in their wallet. They needed to go spend it. And now, I mean, Cheerio still has not. He's got 2,500. It was 2,300 when they relented. So they'll be able to go back, come back out, and feel much stronger the next time they fight up against Radiance. And Gore, I mean, Radiance have a decent Phoenix Siege, but also it might be tough trying to fight into SSG if they've got the FG. For this next Fire Giant dance, I mean, can Radiance come out to fight? Looks like we got to pause. Look at the players right back into the action here, but how do you like their chances if Radiance want to go out to contest the FG?
I think they have a lot of good ones, right? Again, when it comes down to objective secure, maybe the boulder is the one that stands out the most to me. Agni bombs can still do a lot of damage. If you're willing to drop all 3, you could steal a fire giant away. But I'm looking at their team fight, right? Fields of Love, Fear No Evil, right now, maybe haven't been hitting the best marks all game. Some have been great, some have not. But I think those 2 ults and the potential behind them, especially accompanying Benji's potential as a solo laner to open up the pathway for them, it just seems, insane to think they couldn't take a team fight. The problem is SSG have just been reacting so well to it. They've been making the Fear No Evils feel like they're nothing, making these Fields of Love look like they aren't going to apply anything. And it's just from well-timed ults from Raffer, good beads, and relic usage from the rest of the team. If you can find the perfect engagement from Radiance, you're still in this. In fact, maybe even more so, you're going to win this. But the problem is that trying to find those engagements hasn't happened the last few times, so consistency definitely isn't there to rely on.
Taking a quick look at some of these builds. It's a heavy health build for Raffer, Sledge, Thebes, and Blackthorn Hammer to round it out. Mantle is providing a lot of those procs that he'll need, that Gauntlet of Thebes is contributing to a little bit as well. And that's why you see all this percent-based of health damage. The Kin Size for Cyclone Spin, the Soul Reaver for Big Man Tings. That should help them chew through Raffer, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. They got a whole lot of problems aside from that Achilles to try and deal with.
Especially now, Cherio has the chins as well, but also picked up that serrated edge in his last back, which is going to make it a lot easier to do exactly this to Aurora.
Whoa, I promise Aurora was there a moment ago, but he is no longer there, gone now. Ting's now able to find the big turnaround kill in a Cheerio, so it's 1-for-1 support for jungle, and I think Radiance probably like their chances with their team still largely around and able to fight. Spacestation get the tier 2 and right, that is still relevant. That opens up the map a bit more, but they've got to be thinking about retreat without Cheerio.
It's the question of what they have left, though, right? Not a lot of ults still available for SSG. Nika able to transform, so stuns all still available for him. But it's really just Vote with the snipes that can maybe make that big difference. Benji, though, still able to go huge and change the pace of the game. Big Man Tings having some meteors charged up. In about 10 seconds, you'll have Aurora back with that boulder. And I like the odds for Radiance here. Again, it's 10,000 gold down. Most fights, especially on equal footing, don't look good for him, but they can get aggressive here. They can force SSG into an uncomfortable fight.
They're starting it up, and Raffer's not here. He took the back to look for a reset, but I don't know if Radiance are going to stick this. Adapting, the only one in the ring, yeah, that's how you know they're not. Now they retreat. Not going to overstep as Polymorph connects. And Argus, look how low Adapting is just from the damage from Dardes. And it's Vote with the snipes that settles the matter. Nika trying to see if he can find the route into Cyclone Spin, but Cyclone's out of there. Instead, he'll move over towards the mid-Harpies. Benji now stuck. He wants to get to Vote and find this kill. Aegis lets him immune the damage. He gets some sustain, but Benji too strong. But he descends into madness. But Raffer collects him with a much-needed kill. And Spacestation have turned this into a 2-for-1.
And what a good Fields of Love there. 3 members peeled off. Otherwise, that's another kill, and Aurora is out of there. But no boulder, just now these meteors to try and make a difference. And I think they have the potential, Finch. It's always there, but I mean, Cupid, no Fields of Love, Agni, they're not super tanky. Dashing in will definitely cause trouble. The best they can do is hope to peel SSG away.
Maybe convince them to drop it. And it looks like they've done at least that. Cyclone Spin is being locked down, able to get the stun off the Heart Bomb, but he must not have the dash. He ends up getting blown up as soon as they close the gap, but Tings gets the kill onto Cheerio. And Gord, this is to your credit. I asked if Radiance can come out and fight, and you said they had a chance. They are slowing Spacestation down.
And honestly, that's good enough right now, right? You're pumping the brakes on a train that's going 100 miles an hour, trying to get it to just go 30, right? And that's a huge speed gap that you're going to have to pull them down. Maybe they're still going faster than you at the end of it all, but you brought them back into the realm where not only can you fight, but you could strip this away. Adapting's back with his ult. Aurora back with his ult. You're going to have 20 seconds without Cyclone Spin, but you still have some advantages elsewhere on the map. Something, Little Furies, Primal Furies, maybe making a huge difference here just because then you can steal that Fire Giant away a little bit easier, maybe confirm it a little bit easier. But the problem is Radiance, especially without Cyclone, just don't have the full force they need.
Radiance now positioned around this Primal Fury, but with SSG showing up, they had to drop it. Cheerio is back on the map, as is Cyclone Spin, so once they rejoin, we'll have our full 5-on-5. I doubt this will stick around the Primal. Wouldn't want to have everyone end up or winning a big fight and not being near the best objective in the map, but looks like everyone's going to stick around. Primal's been pulled by Space Station. Benji is that frontlining member. Look at the relics. No beads or the backline carry for Radiance, so they might not want to step up as SSG get the Primal. There's Argus as they lock down Aurora. He falls early. Adapting's Fear No Evil, though, allows him to get the kill onto Vote, so it's 2 for 1 when Adapting falls in trade, but Cyclone Sin steps forward. Benji gets the kill onto Dart as Rapper is in some trouble at the back of the fight, too. Cyclone Spin gets Tyrio, but Nika gets Big Man Tings. He gets the double. It's a 3 for 3, but Benji's double makes it a 4 for 3 in favor of Radiance.
And Cyclone's looking to get the deicide, but there's that healing. He should still have the damage to melt through, but the stun is good. I'm actually surprised that Nico was able to do that much turnaround on the Cyclone Spin. Makes him a little uncomfortable, but I love the way that Radiance play that, because who dies first? It's Vote. Who's been the most troublesome? It's Vote. I love the fact that they get rid of him, they get rid of Dardes, because those are the two that have been causing not only the most trouble, but they're the ones that are finding the kills. They're the ones that are stopping Radiance from feeling like they can have that control. And while you only get Benji and Cyclone staying alive, I think that's enough to make a big difference here, and they're going for the big play.
Well, they should be able to get it. Vote only just now coming back up will have a hard task getting here in time to stop the Fire Giant. If it is contested, it should be noted, Benji and Cyclone Spin took a while to make their way over here, and you're right, both snipes might be enough, but Aurora has made his way here. This should provide a little bit of extra to help them get this FG. Vote is taken to the sky with the snipes and should see that it's low. The snipes are close, but it's a little bit too early. All he did was help Radiance secure the objective. And now, this 31-minute game that looked all locked up for SSG is getting closer and closer to even here, Core.
And you might look at the gold lead and think that, well, man, SSG still have it, but I see 5 people with Fire Giant enhanced at that because they got it after 30 minutes. And it's going to be coming in with 4 towers available that they can strip down. That is where all that gold's going to be. Radiance, if you factor in those tier 2s and that tier 1, they're in the lead, actually, based on what they're going to be able to do. It's just a matter of picking those up. Still a difficult task. SSG have showcased their ability to repel Radiance several times this game, and in Game 1 and in Game 2, so I expect them to be able to do so here. But I'm thinking Fear No Evil, Boulder, Fields of Love. If you're defending a tier 1, then you're making a mistake. The tier 2s, maybe you can start bouncing them off of.
Space Station were nearby, lurking in the jungle, but I think they get the idea now. They're going to back up and defend instead, so they don't get caught out. This tier 1 definitely going to come down. Space Station are showing some presence near this tier 2. Beads are back up for Vote. Big Man Ting shall have his beads soon, but 20 seconds away from Angus. Heem has to stay near the back of the fight since he's vulnerable, but there's the push-pull. Rapper gets brought back to the squad. Fatal Strike allows him to escape, but that's a big execute, and his HP pool gone. Radiance now grab the tier 2 tower in left. And as you said, that's slowly chipping away at that lead that SSG have, and now they're grouping up around the left side Phoenix.
I mean, they could go in. Again, Fear No Evil, Blink is ready. Adapting can make some space for them. Whether they want the kills or not is going to be risky. They've got minions, they've got teamfight ults finished, they could get the zone going, but it's still a dangerous game to be playing.
Yeah, you'd think if they really wanted it, Benji would go into his ultimate, so as long as that hasn't been used, then I doubt Radiance are full-on committed to this fight. There's the Mire, trying to keep Dardes zoned out at the back of the fight. Aurora will be the one that steps in first. Nika is there to keep him pushed back out, and so Radiance still can't force their way in, but Cyclone Spin gets a couple more shots. The Phoenix still healthy for now.
They're still in a position, though. Minions coming back in. Still, like you, questioning the commitment of it. That's a good stun, but again, what much does it mean right here? They're just knocking on the door. No one's answering on the side of SSG, and they're not able to find anything, but slowly they're chipping away at the Phoenix. There's the Fields of Love. That's the engage.
That brings Rapper and Nika inside the stun. Nika has to back. Benji's in the ult, but Cyclone Spin is dead right away. Benji is low as well. Dardes gets the credit. Adapting is the one that's in trouble next. He falls to Vote. 3 kills for SSG as Cheerio is the only one that falls on the Chaos side team. Radiant were insistent, instead of going around collecting the towers and closing the gap on getting the left side Phoenix, and here it cost them.
And you can see, I mean, ults coming through, maybe a little discordant from them, but the only way that you could use them, but Benji just dies much faster than I think anybody anticipated. Cyclone Spin as well, just kind of deleted from the game. And that's what SSG have been doing. I mean, I can't count how many times we've just been surprised when you see Big Man Tings, Adapting, Cyclone, sometimes even Aurora, just disappear from the map all of a sudden. And now, not only do you get a good Phoenix defense, you're going to get an Oni Fury. There's a minute and a half until a Fire Giant respawns, so maybe you don't immediately get that, but Pyromancer's up. Yeah, you can't break down a Phoenix just yet, but it's uncomfortable if you're Radiance right now. I wonder if they're second-guessing themselves. Those towers still standing could have at least given them some gold to try and equalize this next fight a little bit more.
Would make the eventual Titan kill easier, open up the map for them a bit more either. And now, obviously, Radiant know that that was what they traded by going for the left side Phoenix. They understood and made a calculated risk on going for that left side Phoenix, knowing what it could potentially open up for them if they were able to break that Phoenix and open up the base. It's just that in the world where it doesn't work out, they've handed a lot back over to Space Station, and they were very fortunate to be coming away with the Fire Giant at all, to be back into this game, so I don't know if they can repeat that same process as the Fire Giant comes back up in a little over 30 seconds.
They're in the right area if you're SSG. All sorts of control over here. I'm kind of surprised to see they haven't pulled the Pyromancer. I feel like they could easily do that with Raffer and Vote, and it seems like they seem to agree here. Worst case scenario, you bait Benji into an awkward position. Right now, this ROM is hitting harder and harder. Went for even more attack speed along with those chins, along with now that Aussie, especially if he gets low. I expect to see Vote try and do his damnedest to survive every engagement, because he is one of the biggest reasons SSG have the control that they have right now. And he's also been kind of highlighted as a target. He's 6'2" and 12. They haven't been able to take him down, and that's where the strength is coming. This ROM, even though it was maybe in danger early this game, it's been safe since.
Nika moves forward. They want to lock down Benji. Arcus is enough for it, and Benji never even gets to use the ultimate. Space Station catch him out in the jungle and make him pay quickly for it. Aurora does get the pull and the push, but to what end? No one was around to follow up. That's good damage onto Vote and Nika, and that does make doing this Fire Giant a little bit less likely. Vote's going to have to go sustain up in the jungle.
But he, again, has that Aussie proc to be able to help provide him. As long as he can get there before it disappears, he should be able to get back to full health almost instantly. And you just see that health bar fill back up. It's like nothing ever happened to him. And being able to get that done without having to back, save for Nika, who did have to back, it makes a huge difference. But 20 seconds left on that teleport. Nika's in a position where he can maybe afford to get a little over-aggressive and teleport back into a ward. I love where SSG's positioning is right now, and I love the fact that they have the sustain they do, because it's just making it difficult to be Radiance. Like, just in general, you can't exist in this Fire Giant pit with them without taking a huge risk.
Space Station have the Fire Giant low, down below half. They step off to look for Aurora. He escapes, so they head right back to FG. But Benji's not that far off now. He'll be back up, has upgraded his teleport, and he'll be teleporting into the fight. He's going to the back towards that ward, and Space Station know it. They're waiting for him. But Benji goes right to the ultimate, finds the three-man knock-up Aurora, uses the boulder to follow up. So SSG make it out. They don't lose any lives, but now Radiant has all 5 members here to help defend.
But Radiance, they have all this aggression, all of this team play, and the awkward moment of, well, we can't chase them down, but we can't not, we can't do Fire Giant. What would you do with this? We just stand here and look menacing for a little while, and unfortunately it doesn't lead them to much, but they do get control of the pit. They're going to have to give it away, though. And honestly, I love Radiance's engage into a counter Fire Giant much more than I like their secure for it. I think adapting, being able to jump in, or the boulder, or the Fields of Love, again, anything they use in their arsenal to stop a team from doing Fire Giant, or even to steal away a Fire Giant, I think is better to me than their ability to secure it and feel comfortable, especially considering Vote can snipe from downtown if he wants to be able to secure it. And the ward coverage, the vision has been good for SSG. I think you let them have this much like you are and just play around the counter. And it's still in that position, Finch, where one good fight, if you get a full wipe right now, 40 minutes into the game, you win the game off of that back, no problem.
SSG have kind of moved off of the Fire Giant at this point, stepping up into the Order side jungle a little bit more. They got Cheerio and Nika pushing up the wave, so they know they can come underneath if need be, but SSG are giving up on this push for now. They're heading back towards the Fire Giant and starting it back up. But Radiance have all their ultimates, all their relics. They're here for the fight. Aurora looks for the pull, but gets taunted right back in, lives for the moment, but the execute from Rapper is enough to complete the kill. Adapting steps in, but he falls as well. It's a double kill for Rapper on the Achilles support. I questioned it back at the beginning of the game, but it's showing up for them now. Benji steps forward looking for the knockups, but he can't find anything more there. SSG have controlled this late game perfectly, and now Radiance don't seem to know where to go next.
And they're trying to get into this fight to cause some sort of disruption around the Fire Giant. Hasn't even been started by SSG, and that's going to be a good engage. Oh, Nika a little bit too low, but they're going to be able to get a lot off the back of it.
It was good damage from Cyclone Spin, but Cheerio makes it pay. The knockup gets them the kill. Benji's in trouble next, is able to make it barely out of there, but Vote gets the kill. And now Big Man Tings has to find a way to defend up against 4. The perfect record is on the line here for Radiance as SSG barrel down the right side lane. This is their first time getting to a Phoenix, and they quickly take care of the right side one. Tings has some ultimates. One little charge there to work with. He's got 2 to try and keep them at bay, but they drop Argus on his head. He's pushed back into the fountain, and SSG are able to take care of game number 3. That's enough for them to get the set win and push Radiance off their throne.
3 more seconds, Finch. 3 more seconds. You've got Aurora and Adapting back in that fight. If Big Man Tings is able to do anything, or if they could just slow him down anywhere else in that fight, then maybe we start to see a huge pivot. But unfortunately, there's only so much you can do, and SSG say, Fire Giant who? We don't need it. We're just going to run it down this right-hand lane, and they seem to hit nothing in terms of a speed bump through that Phoenix, and I think they read the execution perfectly, and they baited Radiance out into fights that they just couldn't win.
They did an excellently played set there from Spacestation, who some people were worrying, you know, are they starting to flounder a little bit? Have they lost some of that magic they had back in that first phase? Well, I think we've got our answer, and the answer is no. The top 4 here, Ghost, Radiance, Spacestation, and Sanguine, after today, appear to be just as close as ever.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we're getting into this with 4 teams that are very clearly at the top tomorrow, maybe being able to showcase who should be clearly number 5, it's starting to blend in these top teams together. But I think taking the day, Sanguine and SSG have to be incredibly happy and incredibly proud of what they were able to do. I mean, that was a 3-game set, but SSG felt very solid in those last 2 in terms of control.
And if you're Ghost and Radiance, no need to beat yourselves up. You were never going to go undefeated the whole phase. All I know now is that everything is as competitive as it's always been here, Gore. But that should do it for us here on the cast. Get it back down to the desk. Have them close it out from here.
Appreciated Finch and Gormizer. Great job on the call, and what a way to round out Saturday here. You bring up Ghost and Radiance. That'll start off next week in the SPL. That'll be a battle for first place. Mifflin's still with me, though, to break down game number 3 and ultimately the whole set here between Radiance and SSG. But let's look towards game 3 here, Mifflin. Some unconventional picks, maybe, if you look towards Space Station. We see RDO locked in, right, and then there's an Achilles as well, and I'm putting my money 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10 on that being RDO support Achilles in the solo lane, but it was a flip-flop here. Raffer piloting that Achilles in the support role, Nika, of course, on RDO in the solo. What did you make of those two in their respective roles here in this one?
You didn't get a super ton of value out of Raffer on this Achilles, likely because of that one flub in the early game, missing out on that ultimate onto Adapting. Nika did his job perfectly of disrupting the backline. This RDO, despite having 5 deaths, looked nigh unkillable come late game, just immediately running at Cyclone Spin, running at BMT, whoever he can get his hands on, or even just disrupting the CC from Aurora. We saw that the pool comes through, Nika shows up, says, hey, maybe you don't do that, and he didn't. But we gotta give shouts to the big boys. Dardez and Vote absolutely bodied this game. These guys had tons of damage. They didn't die very often. When they did die, they were forcing Radiance to maneuver themselves out of position and dive deep for these kills. I mean, these two, and I say it every single week, I think they really are some of the best in role. These guys on SSG have a very strong core inside their carries.
Yeah, Miff, I don't think you're too far off here on that one. Remember, it's really Vote there. He gets first blood for SSG, finally getting the ball rolling. I mean, Radiance are running away with this early game, and finally just some snipes to pull 1 kill back. got things moving here for SSG. Now I have a question more about meta picks, maybe. Do you imagine we start to see Hera a little bit more, or is this really scream Dardes pick to you maybe a little bit further down the road for some of the other mid laners?
Look, Dardes has been doing this since Phase 1. He was doing it Week 1, Phase 1. He's locking in the Hera, and we haven't seen anyone else really try and take it up themselves. It's almost kind of along the same lines of from E United. What do you expect from Hurrywin? You expect Yanis to get locked in. He makes it look good. No one else is playing it anyway. I think Dardes might really just have his signature pick inside of this Hera, man. I mean, he's looking very strong on it. It seems like teams are really struggling how to address it. But since no one else is picking it, it means that some teams are either going to have to just dedicate a ban toward it if they want to get rid of it, because you can't trust your own mid laner to pick it for themselves.
And I think, a win like this makes the top 4, really, I think, of the league so difficult to call for a while there, and then, we'll see standings and all that towards the end of the day. But you really look at what this means. Now we got 3 teams tied up towards the top. Sanguine at 4-2, just 1 win behind, 1 loss further behind those top 3 teams. And then there's a pretty sizable 3-win gap between anyone else and the bottom 4 of those standings. So these top 4 teams, a lot of the conversation was they're all taking games off of the other 4 teams, lower down in the league. Now that they've all started to play one another, there's not that much more clarity as far as who's on top, who's on the bottom. We're kind of in the same spot from when we started seeing these top 4 teams play one another.
Yeah, I thought I had a better grasp. I really did have a better grasp on the league before today. Before we saw all these upsets today, I thought, okay, look, it's going to be Ghost up top, maybe Radiance in second, and then I had SSG and almost in a completely on their own division in 3rd place with Sanguine right below them. But with the upsets coming through today, it seems like it really could be anyone's league right now. I mean, I got to give a special shout to Sanguine being able to take out Ghost Gaming. That one was absolutely phenomenal. But I don't want to take away from SSG's win over Radiance. I mean, the league is competitive. We said it back in Phase 1 that this is the most competitive the SPL has ever been. And in Phase 2, it's starting to ring true again.
And once these teams starting to hit their stride, close-knit in all of their engagements, SSG take the win over Radiance 2-1 to round out our Saturday. And as such, we'll jump down to an interview with one of the big winners, see how they're feeling.
Thanks, Dave. I've got Raffer here with me. Support, obviously, for Spacestation after that big win. And Raffer, man, we got to talk about this set because it was a long, grueling one. First, was there any extra pressure on you to win this game? Or did you all want to win this game maybe a little bit more because you were up against one of the other really top teams?
Not particularly, no. I just go into the set like it's any team, just play it. It's just another game of Smite. It's nice to have the momentum, obviously, but a win to win, we'll take it.
Take it against anyone. Well, talk to me about the Achilles and the Ardio, because we had a big conversation about where those two were going to end up between you and Nika and who was playing what. What was the decision-making process like on who was going to take which pick, and how'd you end up with the Achilles? You end up having a pretty good game.
It's just one of those picks that me and Nika can flex. We do have a lot of picks we can flex, and depending on enemy comps, the way we're feeling, like the way we're going to go into the game, we'll just switch them across last second. It doesn't really take much planning. It's like spare of the moment sort of pick, because I think both of us can play the picks very well, minus my ults at the start, but we won't talk about that.
No, we could leave those behind, because you had plenty of great ones at the end. When you're up against Radiance, do you know that it's going to be a long, grueling set like this? I feel like you both are teams that are willing to take the games a little bit later. Is there any extra prep for the 40th minutes of those games, or do you just kind of take them as they come?
As I said earlier, it's just another game of Smite. We expect it to usually go late against the good teams, and if someone gives us an early win, we'll take it. You know how it is.
Hey, a chance to check in with Mifflin, see how he's doing there as well. But yeah, I'm with you, Raffer. Certainly, you just got to make sure that you go into those games and play them as they are. Right now, though, between you, Ghost, Radiant, and then obviously Sanguine, do you have any particular order for those top teams right now, or does it just depend on the day, my man?
It depends on the day. I think all teams are very competitive, and anyone can take it at this point. It's great to be a spectator at this time in Smite. It's awesome.
It is. It's been hard not to enjoy, I think, all of the matches that we've been able to watch here at this point. Appreciate you taking some time to talk to me, Raffer. Congrats on the win, and looking forward to seeing more of you. I'll get it back down to the desk so that they can close it out from here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Finch and Rapper for some post-game thoughts there. SSG able to round out this Saturday, Mifflin, with a 2-1 win over Radiance. What do you think this does for Radiance's confidence moving forward? I mean, I don't mean it's not doom and gloom. You've lost 1 game out of 6. You're 5-1. You're in a fantastic spot, especially losing to SSG, one of those top 4 teams. You can't imagine this staggers Radiance all that much.
I mean, and it really shouldn't. When you've been at the top of the league for this long, 5-1 is definitely not a slash line to be upset about, be it KD, be it win-loss in the SPL. Obviously, we said it earlier, this is the most competitive it's ever been, and be able to establish yourself at the top with that slash line is incredibly impressive. These guys have accomplished a very good thing coming into week 4. I'm sure they'll be able to roll it off their back just fine.
That's right, and this is a big one for SSG, kind of on the other side of that coin. You had a tough one against Ghost last week. Now you're able to take one over a very difficult team in Radiance here this week in Week 4. Let's see the action we've had up to this point, though. Friday and Saturday games now complete. Got some games for you to start off the day on Sunday, though. The way we sort of framed this was Saturday, the top 4 teams going toe-to-toe with one another. Sunday, those bottom 4 teams looking to get some momentum going for themselves as well. So with that being said, Miff, when you look towards Renegades United, PK and Obey, United Obey played one another on Friday, and the standings will, I think, kind of tell the story of how important these Sunday matches are for both of those teams respectively. The gap is kind of drawn there. 4 and 5 is a 3-win differential, and there's 1 win separating the top 4 teams from one another and 1 win separating the bottom 4 teams from one another. How important do you think it is for United to finally get some momentum going tomorrow, the one team left in the league here without one?
I think it's hugely important. Sitting at the bottom is almost the inverse of what you were talking about. Radiance are going through at the top. You need them to be able to find some sort of footing in the league, especially after falling towards Obey in this last coming set. I think it really is important for their morale, their mentality, even fan reception to turn around on them. But, I want to talk about it, Dave. I got to vote for Obey. I've been voting for Obey every single week. This is the first time, and this is the first set where I voted for Obey, and I think we might actually be able to win consistently again. I think it's going to be a hugely fun game to see between them and PK.
That's always been the conversation. It's been week after week, growing better and better and better, and now they finally maybe improved to a point where you're feeling comfortable taking them in some of those games. Knights, though, a team that's playing Obey tomorrow, need to get some momentum going on their side. One of the best later game teams here in the league, so that'll be a fun one to watch for sure. That's it, though, for Saturday SPL action, Week 4, Phase 2.